Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the country and in the world. It is day 5 of the AI Code Camp. We made it all the way through. Today, we've got some very, very exciting content and a special guest that some of you may even know already. There's a few hints going on. We've had someone say, do we do subtitles in Spanish? Unfortunately, if the AI does it, then yes, we can do it. But we actually, unfortunately, we broadcast in English. Now, lots of the content that you've seen this week will be rebroadcast by our local partners. So I know for sure that Japan, for example, is doing an event next week because they've asked me for the slides so they can translate my opening slides and talk about a few things. But you'll find over time a lot of the content that we've had will be rebroadcast in various languages. Definitely Brazilian Portuguese, I'm sure of that. Spanish, very possibly. Japanese, Korean. The Koreans are very, very good at rebroadcasting stuff as well. And everybody is gathered for the final day, which is great, fantastic. At least today, we are now actually firing on all cylinders on the main YouTube channel. I didn't check this, but I'm sure that we are, because I can tell from the view count that we're getting more and more people. Everybody is joining in to say hi. I really appreciate all the support that you give us for the live events. It is, I always say, if you're joining us live, it is much better live, and it is. There's a little bit more of an atmosphere for those that join in. Meltdown Shark Haven is very exciting. I love your username, my friend. It really does make me laugh every time I see it. Very enthusiastic supporter of Delphi as well. And well, Ben Pelican, okay, from the Netherlands. Yes, lots of the developers in the Netherlands. We've got them all over Spain, very strong in Spain, Italy, France. There's lots and lots of people. In fact, I don't see Einstein yet, but I'm sure Einstein is hanging around, and he's in France as well as in Nats in France. We a lot going on. We've got people here from Canada, the 51st state, just kidding, and Nigeria. I assume if you're asking in Espanol, then either South America or Spain as well. Jackson, I did call him out earlier. I'm assuming it's Paul. It looks like it. Yes, I think it's Paul Jackson. Good day all, and good day and hello to David and Ian. Yes, David Millington will be around shortly, and a few other places, or Maryland and Virginia, and so lots of my fellow Americans, despite my accent. Nuevo Laredo, Tamaulipas, Mexico. So yeah, we've got some Mexicans and all sorts. And Milan is here as well. Hello, Milan. Milan, you are what I term a frequent flyer now, which means you turn up quite often, and I to the point where I recognise it. Yes, Paul says it is him. Good. Hello, Paul. I talk to Paul quite a lot. I get a few people that send me quite a lot of emails. Rick's another one, and that's fine. I keep saying, go ahead and email me. I will answer. Oh, and Melvin said, my wife and friend made me come camping. I'm in Blanco State Park, west of Austin in Texas. Well, speaking as a fellow Texan, and I actually have a sticker from the state of Texas saying "True Texan," so I can call myself a Texan because I vote in Texas and I live in Texas. As many people know, I live just in the Dallas region. I actually live in Frisco, for those that are local. But it's very humid at the moment, so I'm not sure I'd want to go camping in Austin right now. I bet it's like living in a steam bath. But there you go. Okay, so let's take a look without further ado at what's coming up. So today we have got the following sessions, and they are some great sessions. I mean, we've had some really good sessions all week, but today's kind of closing out with a finale bang, so to speak, of some really good content. Starting off, we're going to have a short video and then a live guest, CodeBot for Delphi from RemObjects. Great company, and we'll talk more about them later, what the things they do. But CodeBot for Delphi previewing a new Copilot for Delphi, no less. So I don't know whether the word Copilot is a trademark or not. So we'll say it's a new AI assistant. It goes a little bit beyond what you're used to already built in the idea, and you'll see in the video what it can do. It's a work in progress. David says that, but David Millington will be here to talk about that, and we'll explain what David Millington is doing, turning up on behalf of RemObjects when he gets there as well. It's all good. And 11 a.m., so in an hour from now, we're going to have how to use AI to create commercial quality games. This is with Eric Berger, and he is from Gorilla 3D. If you don't know what Gorilla 3D is, you really should check it out. It's an absolutely fantastic library, and I haven't got round to actually looking at Eric's video, but the videos I have seen of him done in the past are really, really good. Great stuff. So if you're into games, if you're into AI, it's got everything you want for it. Then at noon, so in 2 hours time from now, we have got the AI revolution, how to not generate vulnerabilities. And this is from Valerie Kim. She's a security specialist at Scanner. The rise of AI, the more code you can create with AI, it helps you become more productive. The downside is, of course, you want to make sure that you're not actually automatically generating code that automatically contains vulnerabilities as well, because, you know, AI has got its limitations, the same as any other technology. But Valerie's going to show a video, and I think she's joining me live, but I'll check that with her to talk about that as well. And then finally at 1 p.m., so good 3 hours from now, we'll do a little closing session from me, our traditional bye-bye. We'll talk about AI and show you some of the things that people have sent in to me during the week featuring AI, because some people have done some really crazy stuff with AI, taking screenshots of me and then turning me into a cartoon. I was so inspired and went and resubscribed to the Disney Channel and watched Up yesterday because of these things that are going on. And Daniel Fernandez Gonzalez Pena says he's very attentive here from Florida Blanca, Santander, Colombia, the land of wafers. I didn't know it was the land of wafers, but yeah, fantastic. And Paul McGee also says, present, miss, good job. We've called the names, the roll call has happened. You're all allowed to continue on and pass the grade. So back to our sessions for the day. And the first session is going to be from a name you recognize, David Millington. David has actually, it doesn't work for Embarcadero anymore, but that's not going to stop him being involved in the Delphi community. He, by the way, it was amicable. He didn't get fired or anything. He decided to go off and he's doing his own thing now, which is great. And that own thing involves working in partnership with RemObjects, but also working on a particular project of his own in partnership with RemObjects, which we're going to hear about now. So from David Millington, here is CodeBot. Speak to you soon. And he'll be live soon.
Hi everyone, and welcome to a preview of a new technology that RemObjects is planning to introduce for Delphi, an AI coding assistant named CodeBot. My name's David Millington. Some of you may know me. I used to work at Embarcadero until quite recently. What you may not know is that I've used AI heavily since it started becoming a really important part of programming a couple of years ago. Now, I've always enjoyed coding and do it for fun, and I have since I was a teenager. These days, I really enjoy coding with the assistance of an AI as my colleague in what we create. And in my view, Delphi programmers, like all of us, would really benefit from having one available. That's what this talk is about, a new coding assistant that is planned for Delphi. I tend to believe very strongly in modernization. Now, not everything the world brings as time goes past is good, but I genuinely believe a lot of it is. For all the things that happen, we make progress and improvements, sometimes huge jumps forward as a human species, and AI is one of those. And I've spent a large portion of my career working to bring modernity and productivity to Delphi and C++ Builder, including well before I joined Embarcadero. You can see one recent example on screen for Delphi's sister product, but I care about Delphi too. And in this, I know there are many community members who also desire modernity and modern tooling, And there are quite a few people I admire for their work and efforts. There are a lot of people who contribute modern and exciting things to the Delphi ecosystem. Among many wonderful developers and companies, one that is very interesting to any Delphi developer is RemObjects, who makes some absolutely amazing technology. And that brings us back to AI. I am really glad to be working with RemObjects on bringing modern capable AI tooling to the Delphi IDE. RemObjects have been around for over 20 years and make some great products for Delphi and other languages. If as a Delphi programmer you need to interoperate with .NET, the easiest way to do so is via Hydra. If you need a highly performant and secure data layer, Data Abstract is the way to go. If you need network services, whether servers or clients, the Remoting SDK is brilliant. And the most amazing of them all is Oxygene, which is a modern object Pascal. I'd love to give a talk on modern Pascal and how beautifully designed and productive it is, but that would be off topic for a talk about AI. But I do recommend you check out what it offers, and maybe we'll hear more in future. So check out what this company offers. Given their background, modern approach, and focus on productive libraries and tooling, it's no coincidence that RemObjects are focusing on creating an AI coding assistant. So what are we going to go over today? First, I want to share what coding with AIs is like. I mentioned I do use AI a lot, and why. Now, I assure you I'm a perfectly competent programmer on my own, you'll have to take my word for that, but why do I use, and not only use, but love using AI assistants? To answer that, I want to share how I think programming has invisibly changed. There's been a fundamental shift in how we program. I also want to look at Smart Code Insight, which is an AI feature inbuilt in Delphi today. Well, it's great to have, and I'm glad it's there. I know that if you've only used Smart Code Insight, you might ask yourself why, as a community of Delphi developers, we need something else. And I aim to show that. Why are we building the new AI? That harks back to the fundamental shift in programming. Then I want to look at another AI tool that already exists for Pascal, CodeBot. And I'll demo that live running on a Mac. Now, it also works on Windows, but hey, modern world, other operating systems exist too, so let's use them. And finally, we'll get onto CodeBot for Delphi, the new product we're previewing. It is under heavy development right now, but we're keen to demo it to you. Delphi includes an AI assistant, Smart Code Insight, and while I love Delphi and AI, I don't personally use Smart Code Insight because it doesn't do what I personally look for. Of course, that's personal opinion, and I want to emphasize that I'm glad Delphi has it. But to share by contrast what I do want and find useful, I want my AI to see my code so we can work in it together. That's all relevant code and even the entire project if necessary. Now that may surprise you, and I've heard people worried about this, but here's why. Essentially, it's because an AI is like a human, and you wouldn't expect a junior dev to achieve anything if you didn't let them access the code, and same for an AI. It doesn't work. Humans need to see the code, and your other intelligent companion also needs to see the code for the same reason. But more what I most look for is agentic coding. This is where things really change. Now, an AI is smart, really smart, and can think and plan. You see, if you use OpenAI, you might just think of AI as chat, but it's not. AI thinks. And AI can, very genuinely, analyze code, form a plan to implement a feature or solve a bug, and execute it. And this is where things change. As a programmer, when you work with an AI, you often give intelligent, informed information, and then you let it work, just like it was a human. And this is a radically different way of thinking. Now, in some ways, it's not different at all. We're all used to that if we assign tasks or give input to a junior dev in our team. But to do that with a computer, for a computer to really be capable of that, is something very new. So these two are key. Context, lots of context, and acting semi-independently, being an agent. The best way to think of an AI is as a really enthusiastic junior developer. Think of them as that bouncy, enthusiastic colleague fresh out of university who's read a lot of code and will be super excited to do even the most boring work. But you need to guide them. You're the one who keeps an eye and ensures they follow the right path. That brings us back to context, which is reading code. and I genuinely recommend you think of an AI as just like a human when understanding this. The key here is not just the code on screen, like the current method or whatever you can copy-paste. There's a fancy term called transitive understanding, which just means following from one thing to another. If you're solving a bug, you may have the location on screen where it becomes obvious. But often, the actual bug is elsewhere, so you follow the chain of behavior. This method, which is part of this class, which set up this state, which uses this other class in this other file, and this is following code's behavior across multiple locations. So you've got to give your AI access to your code so it can follow the behavior of the system as a whole. Now, I've said a few times, think of an AI like a really enthusiastic junior developer, like a human. Now, one of the best things about working with people is talking to them. What call a talk? I have a problem that I can't figure out. Can I talk to you for a few minutes? Well, you can do that with an AI, and not only are you not taking time from another dev, but if you work remotely, you may not even have a nearby dev. Your AI is there, and they are really good at listening to you and digging into what you say. And agents. I mentioned a few minutes ago letting the AI plan and act. Look, as a developer, you focus on the hard problems. Thinking is the most important part of being a programmer. I find that what I find fun about programming is creativity, the sculpting of something. When you work with an AI, you do that. You think a lot, but instead of directly doing the typing, something else does. And that's how to use an AI agent. You still think about architecture and guidance, but you let something else do the rote work. I want to emphasize you stay highly involved, and in my opinion, you retain the fun parts. When I use an AI, I get more done, and I focus on the bits I personally find fun to do. I have always enjoyed programming, but with an AI, I enjoy programming even more. So, context. Being able to read code like a human and track code behavior from one part to another. In other words, both reading and understanding. And agentic. It plans and acts. You are the designer, not the typist. This truly is a paradigm shift, and I don't think you will have experienced this working with AI tools inside Delphi, so I want to show you what it's like outside Delphi. Okay, this is a screenshot of me using Claude Code, and this is what AI coding is really like. Now, this is from a personal project. I have grayed out a couple of things. Claude's interface is text. You hold a conversation with it, and at the top it's suggesting to me that it does something. I say yes, but give it considerations, things that are important to me about the design. Remember, as an AI user, I think and design. But an AI is smart and can suggest really good things, so ask it. Here's where it gets exciting. Because it is intelligent, it plans. Here I am on the 5th step of 6 in implementing something. That's a list and a plan to implement what I asked it that it came up with. And then it does it. It writes and changes code. You can see a diff on screen. Now, of course, I can look at that and review the code. Major things, like tell it it's wrong and to do it a different way, or minor things. One I did today was just telling an AI to name methods differently. So we have informed conversation, intelligent back and forth, like with a person, multi-step planning, and then multi-step execution, with you as the designer, not the typist. And it's a genuine paradigm shift. People hype using terms like that, but there's a reason here. It really changes coding for the better. To me, it's the design, the creativity, the thinking, the construction that makes a programmer. And AI lets you do more of it. And I think I'm a decent programmer. I've written kernel drivers even. So when I say that I find that it lets me achieve things more easily that I used to find hard, that's a really meaningful statement. I do find some things hard. To be honest, I find many things hard sometimes, and AI does make them much easier for me to do. And I love doing things. Doing things is amazing. Now, I have just enthused about AI coding, so I need to talk about vibe coding. It's trendy. Vibe coding is where you abdicate responsibility. You don't look into problems anymore, you just let the AI do what it wants until you get a result. Now, I said more thinking, less typing, and vibe coding is where you do no thinking. I do not recommend this. Basically, it gets the same results as doing it with a junior developer, and we've all seen what happens when someone junior goes off without guidance and builds an entire system. Sometimes it's not great. So treat your AI as a colleague. Talk to it, advise it, work with it, rather than letting it do everything. Okay, that's what's changed in programming. That's what coding with AI is like, and I hope that screenshot with Claude Code really impressed you. To me, the most amazing thing is transitive understanding of code and planning sensibly what and how to do something, and AIs can do that. It really changes how you work. Let's have a quick look at Smart Code Insight. Now, for all the Delphi AIs I'm going to test today, I will do multiple things. First, ask it about interfaces to see if it understands it lives inside Delphi. I think it's a fairly easy question to answer. Ask it about delegation, which is to see if it replies with info on the implements keyword. The reason is to build on the previous reply, see if it understands we are talking Delphi interfaces, and therefore that delegation means interface delegation. And finally, ask it to complete some code. I have a simple space where I need a Fibonacci function. I'll do this for comparison in all Delphi AIs. Like Claude Code, or like GitHub Copilot, Smart Code Insight works through a chat interface. You can ask questions, so let's ask it about interfaces. Interfaces are a common and fundamental thing in Delphi. And it's come back not even answering about Delphi. This is not really a useful answer. Okay, let's try delegation. Now, this is a true answer, but it's not computer science delegation, and it's certainly not the Delphi implements keyword. Okay, let's try to get it to complete some code. I have some code on screen that needs a Fibonacci method, but there isn't one. You can invoke this via the context menu, which is quite tall, and I am screen recording on a small window, but let's see what it does. Okay, it can only complete selected code. Well, that's fair. Let's give it the method prototype for a Fibonacci function. And invoke it again. And that's great. It has given us a Fibonacci method. Let me delete all the comments around it to get that method. Okay, and it has a second implementation below. Cool, that could be quite useful actually, but still, let's just delete. And format. Okay, it completed a method. However, I don't use this, because to me this system is not useful in practice. I don't want to have to do that just to invoke code completion. And finally, agent-style coding. As far as I know, it just doesn't have it. You can't tell it, implement something for me, and have it do it. There's nothing there. So that's why I don't personally use Smart Code Insight. Compare it to the screenshot of Claude Code I showed earlier. All the things that I personally find beneficial about AI, the things I actually use and rely on for AI-assisted coding. Context, transitive understanding, agent behavior, things that allow me to work with it like a colleague to get things done. None of those are present. And that's why we think we can build something better. There's a lot of space here for an AI tool that behaves more like other tools. And just as a reminder, if you've used it, and I'm showing it only because it's in Delphi, same for even older versions of GitHub Copilot, which today feel terribly outdated, you might not get the excitement around AI coding. But there are amazing reasons to be excited. It is like an entire junior colleague in your IDE, and we genuinely live in the future. So we want to give you a valuable, context-aware, agentic coding assistant in Delphi, and we're calling it CodeBot. All right, let's look at what AI RemObjects already has, and then go on to see what we're developing. It's early days, but we can already show you more than exists in Delphi today. I mentioned earlier that RemObjects makes a modern Pascal compiler, and it also has its own IDEs, including one that runs natively on Mac. These are called Fire and Water. Fire runs on Mac, and Water runs on Windows. They have the same functionality, so what I'm about to show you works just fine on Water on Windows too. But it's the modern world, and people use Macs, and I use a Mac, so I'll show you a Pascal program on Mac, with an AI solving an issue there. This is the first CodeBot, and it already exists. Now, it's great. It has context. It can read your code and answer questions about it. It can follow to other files. But it does not yet act as an agent. It doesn't create a plan and do things for you. So in terms of expectations, what I will show you is better than Smart Code Insight, but not yet up to where Claude Code is. So let's have a look at Fire on a Mac. Remember, you can do this in Windows too. Here I have one of the Oxygen, in other words Pascal, sample apps. This one is a simple Mac app that displays a metal shader. I'll show it running in a moment, but right now it won't compile, which we're going to fix with AI. So you can see Pascal syntax here, but note it's using the Apple AppKit framework directly. Now let's open a file that happens to have an error. First, CodeBot can be shown through View CodeBot and lives in this panel on the right-hand side of the IDE. This file has an error, and that error lies somewhere in this shader. So here I think is a good but simple example of an AI solving an issue. This is a shader language, not something I know well, so definitely somewhere in AI can help me. But remember, they can help with things you do know well too, often even more so because you build on each other. And I'll give it a vague description because, hey, I might sometimes be tired and might not communicate well, and I just want to get something done, and an AI never gets tired, and will help you when you are. So let's see, the method, and I'll copy the name, here doesn't compile. What's wrong? That'll do. No need to give it the error message yet unless it turns out to need it, because remember, it's smart, it can figure it out. And look, it gets the file contents automatically. This means it is partway to being agentic, and it correctly identifies the issue. I have a constant, and yet I'm trying to modify it. Of course it won't work. But I can tell you, I didn't spot this when I first got this problem. This is not actually a fake example. This is a real example that I genuinely encountered and then decided to use to show you. Like any good AI, CodeBot can hold a conversation and has a memory. Let's thank it. I like being polite to AIs. And for interest, let's now build and run the app. Here you can see a simple metal shader as a native Cocoa macOS app. And remember, this is all built in Pascal with the Oxygen modern Pascal language. Okay, so that's the existing CodeBot in Fire on Mac in a Pascal app with a metal shader. And remember, it works in Water on Windows as well. In development, though, is CodeBot for Delphi, and it has big goals. Those are to have context, to be able to traverse code and understand it. We are working on a Delphi-specific context engine here that is intended to superpower an AI rather than have generic file reading. Plus, we want it to be agentic. It should analyze, plan, and act. In other words, bring to Delphi the true, modern, groundbreaking AI coding. But this is all in development. It is not agentic yet, and the context engine is still being developed, so what I will show you is less than what's on screen. And because of that, I want to emphasize that this is a preview and it's not done. These are goals, not promises. Let's have a look at what we have working. This is CodeBot in Delphi. Just like CodeBot in Fire or Water or GitHub Copilot, or for that matter, like Smart Code Insight, it has a chat window. Let's give it the same test. Remember interfaces, delegation, and code completion, and see if it knows what Delphi is to start by asking it about interfaces. And yes, it does. In fact, it gave a pretty good answer. It certainly knows it's living inside Delphi, and it knows how Delphi interfaces work. Again, let's think it, and why not ask it to tell us more now about delegation. Now I'm referring to delegating interfaces, but interpreting that requires the conversation memory. Your memory is great, because like a person, it will remember and follow you as you thread through multiple topics in your daily work. Most importantly, if it really knows what it's talking about when I ask it about delegation, and remember in the prompt I'm no longer using the word interface as a test, it will note the implements keyword, which I think isn't super well known, I think even among many Delphi developers, so this is a bit of a test. How well it knows the more interesting bits of the Delphi language and how well it can infer. And look, it has replied about interfaces, showing it has memory, and yes, it talks about the implements keyword. In other words, it's a full chat, and when it comes to Delphi, it knows what it's talking about. But let's try something else. One area that we think AI can help is code completion. Something like LSP is great, but ultimately it suggests just single symbols, single words. These days, we can suggest entire implementations. Here I have the same incomplete code as before. If you remember, I'm trying to get the Fibonacci sequence, which I think is a good basic test, but I haven't got the method. Now, we might normally think of code completing as single symbols, so I'd have to manually write the method and use completion as I go, but AI is smarter. Let me invoke CodeBot code completion just in this blank space and see what it does. And you can see it is completing code, but it's not giving a single method call. It's not even giving the method prototype. It's giving us the entire method. AI is smart. It can infer what you're trying to do, and it understood from context that I needed a Fibonacci method. It figured that out for me, so it wrote one for me. This is a wonderful example of how AI improves coding. Now, I could look up on Wikipedia how the Fibonacci sequence works and write something, but as a coder, what I really want is the method to be there so I can move on to the interesting part, which is using it. AI does that work for me. Let me press Tab to accept, and it inserts the AI code completed method. Folks, this is miles ahead. We're not completing individual names, but code completing entire blocks of code. Think about this scaled up. We think with agent mode, so it can think and plan, we can have AI help you do major large work. It works for other languages. Let's bring it to Delphi. So that's a tiny preview. You saw it work in the Delphi IDE, but there's a lot of infrastructure you haven't seen to get it working. It is smart. It knows it's in Delphi. It can provide good answers, can hold a conversation. Maybe you can use it to onboard new devs. If your business is struggling to find Delphi developers, they can ask it for guidance. It can also complete code, and we think old code completion is just not relevant anymore. Contextual, smart, AI-powered code completion is where it's at. CodeBot provides it. But it's not finished. We need to give it more context, and we are working on the agentic coding. Both those are in development. So that's it, folks. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned a bunch about what modern AI-powered coding looks like and enjoyed seeing both what's already available and a preview or teaser of what we hope to bring to you and Delphi. And for further info, you can find out more at remobjects.com/codebot. As a reminder, check out Oxygene, the modern object Pascal in both Mac and Windows. And look at other RemObjects tech too. It's really impressive stuff. Hydra alone, which helps you interop between Delphi and .NET, is amazing. Data Abstract for high performance and secure data. Remoting SDK for network services and clients. Our goal for CodeBot for Delphi is to give you an entire junior developer sidekick in your IDE, one that knows Delphi, that you can talk to, and that can do tasks for you. The idea is not just productivity, but letting you focus on the fun parts of your job. Remember the paradigm shift. We've very quietly moved to a new world as developers, and using AI is a night and day difference, and it is amazing. Here at RemObjects, we plan to bring it to you.
Didn't I tell you today would be amazing? Didn't I tell you? I told you that I would say we saved the best for last because we've had so many good sessions. It would be unfair to say that. But I would definitely say that we have saved some really good stuff for last. And what's even better is in the studio with me is David Millington. Why are you not showing up? Hang on just one second. Oh, I see. I've done this. There you go. Now we have you on the screen. Hello, David.
Hi, Ian. How's it going?
It's going good. And I tell you what, lots of very positive feedback. Lots and lots of people saying some nice things. And good news, we have some questions as well. Because as we know,
that's fantastic.
It's always a moment where you do a webinar and you get no questions like, did we show them something horrible, or do they just not get it, or are they bored or something? But actually, no, you got some good questions. So what I'm going to do, well, let's start with the questions that we had. By the way, I don't know what is going on with Paul Jackson, but he said, Ian, you're a good man. I didn't do anything. I don't know quite what it was, but he did realise.
You are a good man, Ian. So.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, but he said, "Yeah, Big Dave." So apparently now you are Big Dave.
Oh, that's
I've met you.
pretty awesome, actually. Thank you.
Yeah, we've stood next to each other, and I am actually bigger than you, so physically bigger. But then I'm bigger than a lot of people, so there you go. So first of all, let's get through a few complimentary comments. So Milan said, "This is conceptually so far ahead of the curve; it's mind blowing." So I think that's kind of the gist of what people have said is that they're like, "Whoa, this is different," and yeah, it is different. I mean, I know you're not a massive fan of smart codings like for yourself, which I totally get. You know, the reason it's off by default is people can choose, and we've always said this at Embarcadero. When you're writing code, we know we're conceptually sitting there with you. And what you don't want to do is give away your secret blend of herbs and spices off to an AI somewhere, if that's not your thing. If you're concerned about AI, and some people are, then we don't want to turn it on by default and force you down that route. But at the same time, you get to choose it. But this goes beyond what Code Insight can do. Code Insight is good for people that like it. And this is not Code Insight Mark II. This is a different level, as you made clear. Troy, who has got the weird username of Eric Cartman from Iowa, I don't think he's actually Eric Cartman. He says, in the chat window, instead of typing, can you use voice to text, or is that something that might be done later?
Yeah, it's interesting, this very first question, because it's actually something we've been thinking about. Right now, as you saw, like it's just a text, I mean, it's a VCLT memo that you type into, press enter, and the message goes across. But AI, of course, can do far more than just chat. I mean, we just saw how it can think and plan, and there are AI models for exactly this to assist with exactly this kind of use case. So it would make complete sense to integrate AI further than that, and to be able to use the microphone to ask, and then it would understand what you were saying and ask that question instead. I would expect that's like a version 2 or maybe 1.1 kind of feature.
Yeah.
But it's an excellent idea, because I think it really mixes with the idea of changing coding to the focus on thinking and creativity, not typing. Well, matches perfectly.
Well, I'll give you some insight that I've had from this week, actually. Obviously, this week has been a bit of a training course for me on what's available in AI because we've had so many sessions. I don't know everything, and I made it very clear to people. Look, I don't describe myself as an expert in AI. I know quite a lot about it because I've had to research it, but and use it and stuff like that. But we've had people like Yilmaz on, who personally as well. He's very smart C++ coder, but also an AI expert. But nearly every time we've shown some system with AI, the first thing people say is, "Can we talk to it?" So just FYI, it seems to be a very common question that people ask from AI systems, which is, let me talk to it. And from my personal point of view, I find that weird because even though I work on my own, I mean, the only other colleague is sitting there. Where is he? Yeah, he's still there, down there asleep. That's my office colleague, the little fat doggy. I still find it weird to talk out loud to the AI. But if you're in a shared office where many coders do work in open plan offices or something like that, I can't really see 5 or 6 people sitting there talking to the AI, telling it what to do. So I think that typing makes sense because that's how we really interact with the computer as developers anyway. But I get it. But it seems to be a recurring thing. I also thought I've made a couple of notes, which is a good sign. One thing you said, which I thought was hilarious, you said vibe coding is no thinking. I think that's what you said. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that was funny because I don't know, vibe coding's it's like this 10x programmer thing. I'm a 10x developer. It just seems. I get it. Like you picked a term very carefully there, where you said it's kind of like keep letting the AI go until something useful comes out of it. That seems.
I mean, it can work. I mean, people vibe code and create apps, and I think that's really powerful. But it's not necessarily good quality code underneath.
Yeah.
And as I said, AIs need guidance. I think the reason I put that in there is because I'm really enthusiastic about AI-assisted coding, but I do firmly believe in the role of thinking and architecting and designing and creating. And I view AI as a colleague, not as a
That's exactly my point.
thing to just do everything for you.
That's exactly how I feel. I think that you should treat it as a very talented but junior developer. And actually, the session later on with Valerie Kim, their product is about checking that code automatically. So using AI to help you check. But even she would be the first to say, but don't 100% rely on it because AI is AI. And as Yilmaz's session made it clear, it's not an exact science. It's a good science, and there's math involved and there's things like that. But at the end of the day, AI can get things wrong. Even really good AI, like your example, can still get things wrong because it's just the way these things work. So I don't know if you can answer this question. Sorry, carry on. Yeah.
So if I may comment on that, I mean, I mentioned using AI as a junior developer, but I really think that thinking of it as human is a good thing to recommend. I know that seems an odd recommendation, but we are used to computers being very correct, right or wrong. But I think that intelligence is about, conceptually about, integration of concepts and assessment and understanding and that kind of thing, and that is fuzzy. And that's why AI can have different results. I don't think it's helpful to think of it as a computer. I mean, it might run on a computer, but I don't think it's helpful to think of it in the computer framework. I think it's more helpful to think of it as, I phrased like a human, because that is the same kind of results. Humans can be incredibly talented and skilled, but I have written bugs in my code, and AI might as well. Yeah, but the view is, I mean, they do really assist. Like I am so much more productive using one. Like it's incredible, and that's really what I want to bring.
I mean, I had
and everyone at RemObjects does.
Yeah, I mean, I had a customer email me just before the Codecamp with a big long what's the word I'm looking for? Diatribe, I suppose, on AI and saying how, you know, what were our plans and all the rest of it. And some stuff I just can't answer the questions because, you know, for, you know, business reasons, but also some of them, it's one of these things where, well, there are plans, but plans change, you know, and in the AI market, it's a very fast moving environment and new things are coming out all the time. But the weird thing was nearly every question he had has been answered this week in the Codecamp. So, and you have just basically put the icing on the cake on the top of it because he said, well, there should be a better AI CodeBot. And there you go. There's David has just shown exactly that. So, so let me ask this question. I don't know whether you've got an answer to this yet, but I'm going to put it up anyway. And this is from Chris Deegan, and he says, when is it out for Delphi and how much per license? And you did emphasize that this is very much a work in progress at the moment. Have you got any concrete plans yet, or?
Yeah, I mean, it is obviously a work in progress. I mean, I was able to show you a preview, but it's not finished, and there are some complex and hard things to do, but things that we know are fully achievable. So we haven't fully settled on the price, so I can't really indicate that. Obviously, you know, should be affordable and valuable and worthwhile, and there are other tools in the market that, you know, would presumably be comparable with. But I really can't answer more than that. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, my observation on that would be that RemObjects actually has a reasonably good price model. They're not like super expensive. They are affordable, but you know, most business people would say that prices should be a little bit, it should make you wince a little bit, but it shouldn't make you cry. And I think that RemObjects heads in that direction. So, you know,
we don't want to make anyone wince. I think RemObjects has tried to produce really valuable stuff, I think, and
but stay in business as well. And that's the thing. You know, you're not a hobby project here. I mean, that's something that's very important to point out, is that you've actually partnered with them to produce something that's meaningfully useful, and not just, you know, oh, I'll do it over my lunch break and see how it comes about. It's a much more managed situation than that.
Yeah, well, sorry. The other part of that question was, when is it out?
Yes, good point.
And again, that's not fully settled. You know, when it'll be out when it's done, which I think is a good approach, because we want to, you know, obviously get it out, but, you know, get it ready. Mostly currently thinking Q3, you know, third quarter this year, but, you know, see what happens. I mean, it's not the kind of thing you want to promise in case you have more stuff you want to do. But we obviously want to get it out as soon as possible. I know this is a super vague answer.
No, I think it's a
Q3
sensible
is what we have on the website as a rough indication.
I think if your plans are, you know, when it comes to software development, it's very difficult to give a fixed schedule, because there's always something at the last minute. But not only that, when you're talking about a subject like this, there are many unknowns. It's the Rumsfeld paradox that I was talking about the other day, which is there are things you know, things you know you don't know, and things you don't know you don't know. And with AI, there's a lot of
the interesting ones. Yeah, but those are always the interesting ones when you're developing, the things that come up that you didn't expect.
You didn't know you didn't know it. Yes, exactly. And with AI, there's a lot of the Rumsfeld paradox going on. I'm a big fan of that idea that, you know, you need to remember that you can't always entirely scope the projects of knowns and unknowns, because there's some things that you just don't know you don't know it. And he was talking about, you know, like politics and stuff like that, but it applies to software development as well. Lots of times I've gone onto a subject and gone, I didn't know that, and I didn't know that until, you know, I needed to know it. Paul McGee, who's a regular participant in the webinars, and I'm sure you recognise his name as well. He says, yeah, of course, does more capability. And it's weird to be talking to you as an MVP, but he is an MVP, ladies and gentlemen. But does more capability like this? Yeah, does more capability like this imply more tokens required back and forth? And actually, that might go to the next question as well.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, because you know, when you talk to an AI, there's text going back and forth. You know, you send messages to it, it sends messages back. If you have code, and, you know, some of the code goes to it, and more code goes back, and that kind of thing. one of the nice things about AI, I mean, it's moving so fast, is that AIs are both getting a lot better and a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
So
Well, and
a lot of the
it's
AI
inevitable
coding.
it gets cheaper. It has to.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, I've seen. I forget what plan. I think it was Claude. I was looking at, or one of them, and their top plan was like $250 a month or something like that. And then I saw another one the other day, and I forget. I can't even remember what it was, but all it was audio dictation, and it was like an automated note taking thing, which is ridiculous because Whisper is out there, which is an open source project. But this thing was asking for $1,000 a month, and I'm thinking, well, okay, I can
That is
see how
quite a
you
bit.
can, you know, you can say, yes, it's going to be useful to me. How much would I pay a person to follow me around and take notes? And the AI is probably cheaper than that and more effective. But you know, $1,000 a month is a lot of money to pay out for a service. But yes,
Well, I mean, something like GitHub Copilot is what, 19.99 a month or something, I think. And Claude is very interesting because it actually does charge based on the usage.
Yeah.
And that includes how much it thinks. So you know, it is a thinking model. And if it thinks hard, it will use a lot of token. You know, you can give it really hard. I have given Claude really hard problems.
Right.
And you know, it'll think a lot and use a lot of tokens, and then it'll, you know, cost more because it you know, Claude charges you as you use it, rather than a fixed fee.
Right.
But really, I think this just reflects the nature of what it is. Yeah, we haven't settled on this kind of thing, as I mentioned earlier, with the pricing. I think we want to get it working and working well, and then you know, decide how to make it available. The goal, of course, is just to make it accessible so everyone can use it. Yeah,
and then it'll bubble up into this is what we have to charge to make it viable. And actually, you know, we were to look back to the last most recent sea change, to use that horrible phrase in technology, was web hosting and provision of cloud services. And Amazon AWS is notorious for giving you absolutely every service you've got. I mean, I showed on day one, I could replicate Google Translate. You know, not entirely, but very close to it in Delphi with web stencils using AWS Translate in the background. Cost me nothing to do that. I think the demo cost me like 1 cent over the course of a week of playing with it. But everybody has got a horror story, if they're in big business, of having an AWS bill that came through and terrified them because they had a lot of noughts at the end. And it's the same with AI. Right now, we're in that era where, yes, if you're on a per usage model, then you have to think about you know, where your expenditure is, and this is a business expenditure if you're using it to create product. You know, if you're a software developer and you're using it to create software which you then sell, and you're going to use AI to do it, how much would it cost you to have someone come and work with you as a junior and, you know, pay them a decent wage and not, you know, enough to buy a Big Mac once a day or something?
I mean, it should obviously be far less. I mean, you know, as I said, Copilot is what, $20 a month or something, and obviously we haven't settled on pricing, and we might go for a usage model if we use something that is really advanced. But we'd always keep it under control and let you see what's happening, and you know, that kind of thing. There was an interesting thing about the question about implying using more tokens, because one of the things we're working on is many AIs will simply do things like read entire files, which can be huge amounts of text, and that uses a lot of tokens. But one of the things we're working on is a fairly advanced engine for understanding Delphi code specifically.
Right.
And I mentioned transitive understanding to be able to sort of follow between things. The idea with this, and I have to qualify this is in development, we don't know for sure, but the idea with this is to be able to follow all these dependencies and track the structure of code and how it interrelates, while sending a lot less information back and forth. Right. You know, if the AI is interested in a particular method, it will get that method only, rather than get an entire 1,000-line file that method is in.
It's kind of cooperating with the AI. And I would use that an example there to say, well, if you're going to give, you know, an intern, which is the equivalent here, some work, it's more efficient to narrow down the scope of what you want the intern to do, rather than just give him 9 million lines of code and say create a new login page. You know, it's far better to give him a scope of the work, or her, the scope of the work and some screenshots and say, I want it to look like this and here's some functionality, rather than just say, here's 9 million lines of the base code, create me a login page. Because if you do that, it's going to take the intern much longer and cost you more money per hour if you're paying them hourly. And it's the same thing with AI. If you give them 9 million lines of code and say, tell me what bits I can add to make it, create a login page, you're going to blow through your budget in terms of tokens very quickly. It's not going to be very efficient well, maybe, but probably not going to be as efficient as giving a more narrow scope of things and a better explanation of, as I wrote down, it's on the bottom of my list of questions here, which is ask good questions. Because if you want good answers, ask good questions, and the AI will perform. So, Joe,
sorry, but yeah, the design is meant for that kind of thing. The tooling that we want to create for the AI to use is meant to understand Delphi and be able to assist.
Yeah.
So it's not just the AI that's here. That's
that
the goal. Anyway, as I said, it's a preview.
Yeah,
that's the goal.
And that actually goes to this question as well, which is from Joe Sansalone. Sansalone? Does that mean never alone? Okay. So does CodeBot have a fine-tuned model based on Delphi syntax, libraries, components, etc.? That would be even more powerful. I think they need to.
There are lots of things we're thinking about here. So, I mean, not currently, but it's definitely on the table. I think that one of, there are multiple ways, AI definitely knows Delphi. There are multiple ways to sort of lead AI in the direction of specific things. That's actually another reason to use that same code analysis model, because we want to use that to make sure it is aware of your specific code and your specific libraries, without fine tuning, but because we can make that information directly available. Now, whether we do that via a fine-tuned model in the end, or whether we use other tools like the one we're currently looking at, or whether we use a more sort of RAG-based system or something, there are all sorts of different paths. So even though the answer to what's on the screen is no, not currently, the answer to the reason for that question is definitely yes.
Yeah. So more going on. Yeah. I asked Jim McKeith whether he used to work for RemObjects, and he said yes, he did. So there you go. I thought he had, but he just chimed in and he's watching. So okay,
so
well,
good company, and they make great stuff.
Yeah, well, I
part of the Delphi ecosystem.
For them. But yes, it's good stuff. So those are the specific questions. The function selected, real life applications, multiple. Okay, so I think we'll probably let you answer these directly, because some of them are quite long and not very real life applications. Multiple tables having 200 plus fields and thousands of lines of code for business rules very quickly makes AI expensive. It's often cheaper to hire an Eastern European. I think he means to outsource it. Well, yeah, I mean, as David says, it's about doing it intelligently. And one of the things you're trying to do is actually, not burden the AI with stuff that could be done locally to narrow down the scope of what you actually need it to do, rather than just blindly, give it, thousands and thousands of lines of code and let it work it out from there. Yes, of course. And as I said, the example I gave was, if you want the intern to be more efficient, don't give him 9 million lines of code, or don't give her like 9 million lines of code and say, work it out for yourself. You need to have the scope there. The function was selected, and the AI was asked to complete it. And we're getting towards time for the next session, but we're fine. And the AI was asked to complete it. The AI completed the code with multiple variations, but wrote the entire answer in the editor. Correct.
That was Smart Code Insight, actually. That wasn't the one we're previewing. That was meant to be shown by comparison. But yeah, I like our one actually displays in a pop-up, just like normal code completion, except it shows the entire suggested method or block of code in a pop-up.
Yeah.
But the thing of various variations instead, and let the user choose the one they want. Look, yes and no, because ideally it will suggest something really good. And I think that with this kind of thing, the model of how you interact with an AI is not necessarily only just let it propose something and then you select option is that it will propose something and that you sort of interact with it as you write code together. But that said, what I demoed to you when it popped up and it showed a code completion pop-up where I pressed tab and then it inserted the method, actually does have support already for multiple versions. And if the AI had decided itself that there were multiple plausible versions, it actually already does this. If it had decided there were multiple plausible versions, then it actually would have shown that, and you could have pressed, I can't remember now, I think it was like Control Alt, left or right arrow to choose. But in general, it just tries to do a good job from the beginning.
Ali has a question as well, and we both know Ali, and he has some insight into what goes on. Due to the security concerns, RAD Studio's AI integrations have limitations and don't provide access to the project's actual code or environment for AI. What about the CodeBot? I see what you're saying, Ali, and I know you know quite a lot about this. It's not that we don't allow access. What happens is we allow the people to manage the access, which is a slight different approach to some of the Microsoft tools, for example, which kind of they're on or they're not. Your Microsoft has a very, very large investment in AI technology, and what's the word I'm looking for? They're the things that drive them and not necessarily things that drive Embarcadero. We don't have, for example, a financial preference for which AI engine to use. Our preference is based on your preferences. So if you choose to use OpenAI, solutions, or Claude, or Gemini, or something like that, that's your choice, and that's really because we feel like we should give choices. How, David? To go back to CodeBot, in terms of security, you're not actually giving it all the code, are you? Is that right? You're actually you're asking.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it would. I mean, I think the first thing is, if you don't want AI to interact with your code, don't use AI. It's very easy to prevent that if you don't want it to happen, which is just by not doing it. But I think really the thing is that I have heard, from a few people who, I think that the fear that AI might sort of use your code is in my view not perhaps understanding exactly how the system might work, because AI vendors provide a service, and there's very often contractual wording in there that they don't use the data. And I think one of the best ways to consider this would be something like your Google Workspace. Like Google provides your email and spreadsheets and stuff for businesses as part of the Google Workspace. And that info can be incredibly sensitive, far more sensitive than source code. Internal finances and the CEO's emails and stuff can all go through this third-party system. And why do we trust it? Well, because we have a contract there that says, look, they're going to not do anything dodgy. And I think it's exactly the same with any product that interacts with any business thing. There are products out there that scan source code for vulnerabilities, for example. That looks at the entire code base. And I think really this is just about, do you use a tool that says, hey, we do the right thing or not? And if you use a tool that says, yep, we do the right thing, then you're good.
And also when it comes to regulation as well, a lot of the regulatory authorities now, their fines are based on a percentage of income. And the reason was, you can say, well, let's fine Google $1 million, and Google will go, it's cheaper for us to just pay the fine, than fight the case legally, because they've got teams of lawyers, I'm sure. But what isn't cheaper is if they say we fine you 10% of your turnover, which would be painful even for somebody the size of Google. So there's always legal frameworks helping you. You say, oh well, they're too big. I can't trust them because no, I disagree. I think it's it is what it is. We're kind of running over time, which is fine, but I just want to point out one comment which Dave and I talked about a lot before we started this, and someone saying it was Paul actually saying thanks to Embarcadero for allowing cross pollination here, and David and I talked about this because it's important to understand why these things are okay, which is that you have to have faith in what the products that you provide are strong enough to have people that maybe produce their own IDEs, or Free Pascal or Lazarus or anything that RemObjects might produce as well. It's all for the benefit of the developers at the end of the day. And if RemObjects comes up with something that is earth-shatteringly good and is painful for us to go, God, they're good, they did this, or they got everything in rainbow colors, and everybody loves that, and we can't do that. Well, then it's beholden to us to actually have that kind of driving force behind us to actually do something about it and compete. We are not in competition. We're not adversaries. We're all trying to contribute towards the health of Object Pascal and Delphi as a specific variant for us, and actually for David as well. But I'm going to talk at a Free Pascal event later this year as well, because we all want people to use Object Pascal preferably over any other language. If you go and use C# or God forbid Python or something like that, then that's a sad state of affairs, because if we're all using Object Pascal, then everybody wins at the end of the day. And so thank you for saying that we're allowing cross-pollination, but that was never really a question here. It's about what's good for the developers, and I genuinely mean that I think David's got something really good here with CodeBot. I've told him as much. I think that it offers something very, very interesting, and it's got my support. And this will not be the last time that he and I will talk about this. And come up with.
I appreciate that. Thanks. And look, I mean, yeah, and even if you might ignore Oxygen, the Object Pascal compiler that RemObjects makes, which I happen to really like myself. But their other libraries are part of the Delphi ecosystem. Like if you want to use Hydra, it's built for Delphi interop. That's his point.
Yeah,
and so it's a great company. It's an ecosystem.
Yeah, correct.
It's good to respect the way for everyone to get along.
Yeah. Anyway, so we'll run over a bit, but I'm sure Eric won't mind. It's fine.
Golly, we are 9 minutes over late. So I'm sorry. I'm actually not certain who's after me, but whoever it is, I apologize.
I think it's Eric next. It's fine. He'll be good. But it's important. I think CodeBot is a really exciting development. I can't wait until you've actually got to the point where you go, actually, we think this is good enough as a first cut to install and play with, because I think it's needed. I think that certainly Atanas, who's the GM at the moment of Embarcadero and president of IDEA, he really genuinely believes in AI. He's got a big article up on the blog about it at the moment. Anybody that's skeptical about AI, you need to understand that it doesn't matter whether you dislike it or like it. It's not going anywhere. It's here for good. And good or bad, whatever your point of view, I personally think it's a good thing. I'm an optimistic skeptic. I don't want to trust everything implicitly. I want to see what can be done, but I am very optimistic about a very exciting future, and CodeBot is part of that as well. And all power to it. It's great.
Well, yeah, as I said, part of the ecosystem. And if we're doing something that happens to align with IDEA as own president, I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, I'll be very
help Delphi developers. That's what it's all about.
Exactly. All right. Well, thanks a lot, David, and thanks for coming along. And we will see you next time.
See you soon. All right. Well, thanks very much.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay, so we are a little bit late, and I apologize for that. But our next segment or session, should I say, is from Gorilla 3D. It's actually from Eric Berger. And let me just pull the caption up. So this is a very interesting section. Oh, by the way, and David, if you can still hear, Ali says, thank you, David, for all your work on Delphi in C++ Builder. Yes, absolutely. You know, he did a good thing, and he's still around. He's, like I say, he's an MVP for the future. So this section coming up now is how to use AI to create commercial quality games, and we will be back later after this, but hang on to your hats because this is a gorgeous session.
Hello and welcome to this webinar where we want to talk about artificial intelligence and how you can use it to build really great 3D applications and 3D games. At first, we try to figure out the question, what does a 3D application really requires? And how Delphi, C++ Builder, Gorilla 3D, and AI can help you. Because most of us are programmers and not able to manage all of the things in a 3D application, or there's just a little time to do a new application or building an application. So AI can really help you a lot solve some of those tasks. I will show you how to generate different assets with AI, and we're going to integrate all of those assets in a small app using Gorilla 3D and Delphi. My name is Eric Berger. I'm the founder of Gorilla Software and the developer of Gorilla 3D Framework. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me at eric@gorilla3d.de. I will answer them as soon as possible. But first things first, the 3D scenes shown afterwards are highly dependent on the hardware and performance of your device. This presentation is done on a laptop with a dedicated RTX 4070 card, and the demo you will see in a few minutes is available at the GitLab repository. To compile that demo, you need an installed Gorilla 3D package, and you can do this by our installer tool via the Embarcadero Get a Package Manager or by manual installation. You will find some instructions on that in our documentation. When working on a laptop and running on battery power and energy saving settings, take care, this might reduce performance a lot. And if you're working on a virtual machine, you need to have activated GPU pass-through to a real physical graphics card with at least OpenGL 4.3. Let's start with the question, what does a 3D application require? The first and most important thing is a good idea. Usually simpler is better. And once you have figured out an idea, you have to choose a development environment and programming language to implement your idea and finally build your application. Besides those programming skills, you will also need skills in a lot of topics. So you need to know how to do 2D graphics for UI design, textures, icons, and whatever. You need to know how to build a 3D model or character, to texture it, to animate it. And when building a 3D game, music would be nice, so you need to know how to compose music, record audio samples. And telling a good story is also not easy. You have to know a lot about narrative design. So how should I even manage all of that? And the answer is Delphi, C++ Builder, Gorilla 3D, and AI can help you a lot with that. You can use AI to ask for a good idea. And this is what I did for this webinar. It recommended to me, hey, how about building a small app where a boy talks to a robot and asking questions about AI? And I got a step further and even built the complete 3D characters with AI. And also, the dialogues and translations and speech files were generated with AI in this demo you will see in a few minutes. Because this is a webinar with Embarcadero and Gorilla 3D, I chose Delphi to build this application. And as many of you know, there are meanwhile a lot of AI features included in the IDE. So you can generate source code, you can fix source code, and you write documentations with AI. To combine the assets we have generated with AI and to put it into our Delphi application, Gorilla 3D comes in place. It helps you to integrate all sorts of assets from models, audio, images, and helps you to build a 3D application with much less code. So even if you're a single developer or having a small team, this will help to save money and time. So what is Gorilla 3D FireMonkey add-on framework? Basically, it's an extension for the FireMonkey components library, and it works since Delphi 10.1 and C++ Builder 11.3. We do support multiple platforms for Windows, Android, and lately also Linux, thanks to Embarcadero. And the macOS and iOS Metal support is under development. It provides runtime and design time features, so you can design your scene in the IDE, you can edit things with the object inspector, manipulate materials, and even write shaders at design time. But still, it's not a 3D engine as some of you might expect. I will still call it a framework because it's more basic and it has its advantages, so you can easily integrate Gorilla 3D in your existing applications and add 3D power to your application. Getting back to our demo application, where we now have the idea of a boy talking to a robot, and we now are going to need 3D models to represent our idea. So we're going to create this with AI. And for this webinar, I've tested out a few platforms available. So especially here, I chose Meshy AI and Hyper3D AI, also called Rodin AI, because they offer partially free options to generate models. But there is also another one, the Hanjuan 3D model, which you can install on your local machine by using Python, PyTorch, and CUDA. And there's even a Blender add-on available. So when we're having a look at Meshy AI, what it does, you can use a text prompt or an image prompt to generate 3D models. And it will then generate 4 variations of a 3D model, and you can choose one of them to continue with texturing. And the advantage, as I said, of Meshy AI and Hyper3D AI is that you have a free amount of generations, which is calculated by coins. And when you do generation, when you do file downloading or texture application, this amount will reduce. But it's still worth mentioning now here, there are a few issues with AI-generated models. So sometimes they are messed up or imperfect. So it might happen, for example, that the arm is attached to the body or the leg and there's no space between, or there's a large number of unnecessary polygons and vertices, which might slow down 3D rendering. And I also had sometimes an issue with the exported files, which were defect, or they're not smooth shaded, so they had more a polygon-like look. And if you're unhappy with the results of AI generation, you can still go to classic archives with a high-quality 3D assets. I've listed a few ones here, so Sketchfab, Fab.com, and CG Trader are very popular and have millions of 3D models you can browse. AI model generation platforms also provide auto texturing and UV mapping function. So it will automatically generate textures suitable to your model and link those informations for you. Some of the platforms also support to generate physically based materials. So Hyper3D is able to do this. But there are still some issues with AI-generated textures. So sometimes the textures are not linked to the exported model, so you have to do post-processing work to fix that. And very often the textures generated by AI have tiny glitches in there, which are not perfect, but in general, it's getting better and better, and yeah, it's just a matter of time. But in case you're not happy with the generated result, you can still work with classic texture archives and find the textures you really like, and you can draw them using tools like Blender, 3ds Max, Maya, and whatever is they're available. I've listed a few archives here for you and tools you can use to generate and find textures. Now that we have generated our models and textures, we can export them to a file format. The AI platforms like Meshi AI and Rodin AI offer various different file formats. Many of them are supported by Gorilla 3D. So when we're having a look at that, you can choose the character, and going to the download section, we can find FBX format, OBJ, GLB, STL. All those are imported by Gorilla 3D, and you can easily import them there. Rodin AI also offers FBX and OBJ format. So once we have now created our characters, it would be nice if we could bring more life to our demo application. So animating our characters would be really nice. Some of the AI platforms do support animations, so like Meshi AI provides functions to auto-rig and animate character models. Auto-rigging, for some of you that might not know what it is, you are going to put a bone skeleton structure inside of a 3D model and make it able to be animated. So, but because I was not happy with the result of AI-generated animations, I still chose a good old solution by using Mixamo.com, provided by Adobe, and it's a free platform. You just simply go there, you upload your FBX or OBJ file, and you can just simply place some points on there. Let's have a look at it. So I've uploaded my character, and you place some spots on the model, and it will automatically put bones inside of the 3D mesh. And then you can choose from hundreds of animations and apply them to the character. And once we have an animation we really like, we can start by downloading it. And we're starting by downloading the first animation with skin. So we want the model within animation and with a skin. And any further animation we're going to download without a skin. So we have separated animation files for each animation. There are also alternatives to Mixamo.com. There's also a free available version from Accurig, but there are also many paid parts in there. And you can still go with the classic tools like Blender for auto-rigging and animations. So now we once have downloaded our animated 3D models from Mixamo.com. Like I said before, Gorilla 3D provides many formats to be imported from. And what it also does, it loads all materials and textures and link everything together to display it correctly. And we do provide a large set of materials, for example, normal mapping, splat mapping, physically based rendering, parallax occlusion mapping, and much more. And all those materials are inherited from a default material which produces shader code on a node base. So this means you can exchange and expand those structures and modify shaders in a very easy way. We also do provide a feature called material behaviors. This is used, for example, for wind, water caustics, or coloring your scene. So imagine it as a global setting, for example, for wind, where you set up the wind power, the direction, and whatever, and you can take this behavior and attach it to a specific material you like. So even a character could be affected by wind if you want. And of course, we did the way over mixamo.com. Gorilla 3D is able to also load animated models. We're able to load skin, skeleton, and vertex animations. And as you saw, we are able to load separated animation files. And once you load those animations, Gorilla 3D tries to optimize those animations because they can be very granular. There can be very tiny parts of animations. So it tries to merge things as possible and to optimize the performance of the animation. Another optimization, which is optional, you can cache the whole animation inside the GPU, which increases rendering performance a lot. Currently, only FBX and Collada DAE format and our own G3D format are supported for animations. Since we now have talked a lot about how to do things and how to get things imported, let's have a look at our demo application I have prepared. So it's just a simple FireMonkey application, and I put a Gorilla viewport into it, placed 2 Gorilla models into it, and loaded our characters into. In the back, you will see there's a procedural skybox, of course a light source, and there's also a room model in the back for just a simple background. And I already imported the models, but we can have a try again and do this, so that you can see how the process is working. So we're going to choose our robot file, and we're starting with the file we have exported with the mesh and with the skin. So this one is quite bigger. The other ones are just the separated animation files. So we choose our main model, and we're adding our separated animation files. And we import them, and here we go. It's just imported with all the informations and all the animations, and that's completely stored in the formula file. So you can of course load it at runtime, but in our case here and for this presentation, all the model data, animations, textures, and so on are stored in the formula file itself. And as you can see on the formula, we already have here a component called dialog system and another component which is called fmod audio manager. Those components we will need to implement our conversation between the boy and the robot. So as I mentioned before, I even generated complete dialogues and speech files using AI. So what I did was I've uploaded an example file to a large language model like ChatGPT and Gemini, and it should also work for all the other ones, and gave them an additional instruction on how the internal format works. And the result was surprising. It generated the complete dialogue with questions and answers and multiple questions in a row, and even the events for playing back audio or switching animations, AI has prepared for me. So I could download the file and just import it, and it worked out of the box. But to display the dialogue itself in the application, you will need another component which you can create at runtime. It's a so-called head-up display, and it's responsible for taking your dialogue and displaying it as a visual feedback of the dialogue. Okay, let's switch back to our application, and I can show you the dialogue AI has designed for us. So you can open up the dialogue designer inside of the IDE, and you can choose the dialogue file AI has generated. It's an XML format inside with a different extension. And AI even generated the pattern position in our flowchart for us. And as you can see, it created a question with all the answers and following up questions with further answers and so on. It generates or prepared the events for playing back audio In the dialog designer, you have the option to play back different audio files depending on the language you're using. You can place timer events in there to do certain things like switching to an animation at a certain point of time. And yeah, it's a quite complex but powerful system, and you don't have to program any line of code. It's all controlled by those events and by the flowchart itself. So now that we have the dialogue with all the questions and answers and text and translations and whatever, it would be nice to have a real audio output, and for this the fmod audio manager comes in place. But for that we need some audio files, and I thought it would be nice to generate those too by AI. And this is what I did. I've tested out a few different platforms. Here you have a list of all of them, and for this demo application I went with the Witness AI, where I put just the text from the XML format inside and generated speech files from that. So you can download them as a WAV file or an MP3 file, and you can simply link them inside of the dialog system. So we can have a look again at it. When we're switching here to some of those audio events, you just say which language is this, and you put in your file path, and it will automatically play back this file when the question starts. It will play back the audio file. Besides those components you already saw, like the dialog designer, Gorilla3D provides a lot of more components for building games. So we do have inventory and skill system. We do have terrain rendering, procedural skybox rendering, cube map skybox is also possible. We do have a fully customizable particle system. You can use mouse, keyboard, and gamepad input controlling for hotkey and sequence detection. You can control your characters with this input controller in first person, third person, and even with physics character controlling. You can have 3D points in your 3D world where you can react with specific actions onto it. So in case you're looking on a 3D point or you're getting close to a 3D point, this point is getting triggered and you can do certain actions on that. You can build a very powerful sound map to create your own sound environment and automatically play back sounds in a certain state or event. And we do support water surface rendering with waves and ripples. And as you already saw, the fmod audio manager, which is a very powerful component for playing back audio, even with 3D sounds and 3D positioning of sounds in your world. We do support different physics engines, and even the AAA game Jolt's physics engine. Besides that, we do also support rendering of MRT and CT scans, or in general, when you're having 3D data, the volumetric mesh rendering is perfect for you. And I know there are a lot of scripting components available for Delphi, but the Gorilla script is a good way to work with Gorilla3D. So if you want to do scripting, Gorilla script is a good choice for you. And in case you don't want to deliver thousands of files with your application, the assets package management is a really great component to pack all your assets into a single archive and just publish this file instead of thousands of files. And we do also support many popular effects like anti-aliasing, reflections, refractions, bloom effect. You can build your own After Effects And this is all based on our very powerful rendering pipeline, which differs from the standard FMX pipeline. So we are using a more modern approach in rendering transparency, and you can expand this rendering pipeline with your own render paths. And of course, general features like fog rendering, color management, and tone mapping are available with Gorilla 3D. But before we end up this webinar, let's have a look at our demo application we have here. So I know some of you might be curious how it looks like, so let's start it. And before we start, we have to choose a language, and I think we start with the English one. So after a second, the dialog will start automatically.
Hey robot, what is AI anyway?
A way for machines to pretend they're smart while secretly Googling everything.
Wait, you really Google stuff?
Oops. Ignore that. I totally knew everything already. Beep boop.
Hey robot, what is AI anyway?
Imagine your toaster had a PhD. That's AI. Sort of.
What? That sounds so terrifying.
Terrifyingly efficient toast. Ha 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 ha.
And we can have also a look on the translation. I've only translated it to German, so I'm sorry if you don't understand. But it's just for presentation, right?
Hey Robot, was ist KI überhaupt?
Künstliche Intelligenz. Es ist wie Gehirne, aber mit mehr Mathe und weniger Snacks.
Kann KI Videospiele spielen?
Ja. Und ich gewinne immer. Sogar bei Verstecken.
Das klingt wirklich unfair.
All right. So we can also have a look at the source code. And as I promised, you write much less source code with Gorilla 3D. And as you can see, it's just around about 180 lines of code. And yeah, it's quite simple to build this kind of application. And so far, we now have reached the end of the webinar. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. And now we're going to switch to the Q&A session. But in the end, I want to show you some of the links, and you can have a look at our official website at gorilla3d.de. And you can download the developer edition for free, as I said, via the GitHub Get package manager or our installation tool. There's also a documentation available. There are precompiled demos in our download files section, and you can also download a GitLab repository on all the demos available. The application I've shown you, you can find, as I said, in the GitLab repository here, and there are also some open source projects. And if you have any questions afterwards, feel free to contact me, Eric, at gorilla3d.de. And at this point, I'd like to say thank you, everybody, and see you soon.
Excellent stuff. And the good news is we actually have Eric live in the studio. And let's turn him on and make sure that we can see me. There you go. Hi, Eric. How's it going?
How are you?
Yeah, very good. I'm always impressed by Germans because nearly every German that I come across speaks excellent English, and you're another example of exactly that. Your
Thank you
English
very
is
much.
fantastic.
I do my best.
My German, if I spent a lifetime learning it, would still sound horrible. So that was a really great demo. For those that were are going to ask, because a few people scanned the QR code that I've put up there over that way, I think. That goes to the site. We do a summary at the end of these presentations. They do, Hagop, who's one of our writers, does a blog post summarizing the day. So we'll try and make sure we extract your links as well, so that they're on that summary. If not, we'll probably ask you to give us a copy of the slides or something, so we can get the links as well. Yeah, there was a lot of links there. You're very comprehensive. Oh, look, you've got some people saying some nice things about you. That's a good start. Meltdown Sharkhaven, who has the best handle ever. I love that. I'm hoping he's a gamer, because that's got to be a gamer handle, right? Yeah.
Hope so too. Yeah.
Yeah. And EC Code 6 says smooth animation and me love. I'm guessing that's what they mean. So that's good as well. And then XH says, thank you for an awesome presentation, Eric. So there you go. Bit of love from the viewers. Now, just to reiterate, you do there's a couple of different versions of Gorilla 3D. If people go into Rad Studio and click on Get It, they can get the do we call it an Embarcadero version or developer version, or what do you officially call that?
Yes, it's a version for free to download.
Right.
It's a complete feature set, so you have all the functionality inside. The only thing is it has a watermark in the corner, but it's fully functional, so you can test everything, you can build your apps, you can try on. So the licensing says once you're going to publish something or sell something, you have to buy a commercial license. So I also posted the link of the online shop.
Yeah.
And then you need to buy a license. Until then, you're feel free to build your apps, ask questions on me.
Yeah, and they can go to that link there, because I've moved it now, so I can point to it, and they get the full version. And I remember when you first submitted, I think it was to Get It, and I'm one of the people that reviews Get It submissions, and we saw Gorilla 3D, and all of us were like, wow, this is amazing. I mean, you had a demo there, and it was just quite mind-bending what you can do. I think it's really impressive for us at Embarcadero what can be done, because as a 3D engine, it's great, but also the fact that you can visually program, I suppose that's the right word, or it's visually control the narrative of the story. And as you showed, even the AI translation of the text, once you've translated it, obviously, I mean, it support it. Am I right in saying if they produce an animation, did I understand it correctly that can then be multilingual, so they could have pick the narrative in German, pick the narrative in English, pick the narrative in Portuguese, for example? Is that right?
Yes. You control the dialogue multilingual, and you can play back audio depending on your language. You can switch to a different animation depending on your language. So because sometimes the words when you're speaking and you have an animation exactly onto lip synchronously, so it's better to have a German animation and an English animation and so on. So it's also possible to do switching of animation in multilingual. And there's also further event types, like setting properties, executing scripts, and so on. There's much more there.
Yeah, I've had lots of my code over the years translated into different languages, and I always remember that whatever size you've made a label or a text box in a Delphi program, if you did it in English, when you give it to Germany, you need to triple it, because it's Germans have words that are very challenging, shall we say, to fit into user interfaces. It's a very precise language, you know. I've seen words in German that are quite, you know, this is a soup spoon to use in hot soup or something. It's it seems like that's as precise as it gets. So yeah, I think that's a very important point to say. If you see an animation that's very closely dubbed, and then all of a sudden it's in a different language and the lips don't match, it's a little bit. It takes you out of the imaginary world that you're in, and that's a problem. Meltdown Sharkhaven, again, great name. Is there a maximum limit of dialogue for any NPCs if created with Gorilla 3D that can be generated with AI? I think that's
I'm not
kind of
sure if I understand the question. Is there an there?
So what he's saying is there a maximum limit of dialogue for non-playable characters if they're created with Gorilla 3D? And then he says that can be generated with AI. I think he's kind of combining two things there, because the first question I would say is there a maximum limit of dialogue for non-playable characters?
No, there's not.
No.
The short
And the
answer.
second one will be that you generate with AI. Well, the more you generate with AI, the more it's going to cost you, and also it depends on the number of tokens. So yes and no. The answer is no if you're just generating dialogue. It doesn't matter whether it's generated with AI or you sit there and type it for 24 hours. There's no theoretical limit. And if you're doing it with AI, then yes. I mean, it's Andrew Spencer says, very neat. Things have come a long way since Game Maker. Are you familiar with Game Maker?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, I guess that I'm not a gamer myself, so I'm kind of out of my comfort zone when it comes to some of these things. Are there other use cases for Gorilla 3D besides games? For example, animations for use in a video or a website?
Yeah, there are a lot of examples. So we do have, for example, rendering of MRT and CT scans, something like that. So more in the medical area. There's an easy-to-use component, so you can just load into those 3D data and will display by ray tracing the whole 3D scans, and you can rotate, you can scroll into or zoom into. That's a very popular use case. And there's also, let's say, some kind of design software, so you can use it for displaying generally displaying models, so something like step files, IGS, so architectural files. For that, we have, since the latest version, more import formats, so you can load up those things to build really modern and commercial applications. And yeah, of course, you can do you can build shaders and write shaders in the IDE at the same time, so you can see what is doing without starting the application.
Yeah. Is that the standard kind of shader language that you see out there, or is it a different type of shader? So like sphere shaders and things like that?
Yeah, currently it's GLSL by OpenGL.
Okay.
But as I said in the presentation, I'm also working on the metal support. So this language will also be the basis for metal shaders. So in future, I will have a converter that's going to take the shader code in GLSL and converts it completely for you to metal. So it's more like the Embarcadero Delphi approach, having one language building for all platforms, or like Skia does it. Yes, and currently it's GLSL. Maybe someday I will expand it a little bit with more functionality, but currently it's just GLSL.
Yeah. When I was in the Delphi Summit last year in Amsterdam, a guy came up to me and he, I get a lot of people approach me and want to show me their programs. And he's like, Ian, I've got to show you this app I wrote. And he'd used FireMonkey 3D, which is kind of having problems at the moment. It needs some love, shall we say. And we're talking about various things that we can do. But he showed me this app, and he lived like I do. I live in an apartment block, a very large. It's a bit like living in a very upmarket hotel, but all your stuff is here. It's cool, But he lives in a similar place, and it's all smart home. So my place is a smart home. I can turn on the lights and the fans from an app, or just talk out loud and it does it, you know. But he had an app that used FireMonkey 3D, and he could control lights and corridor lights and things like that. And so he was using shaders to show where the light beam would go. I don't know. That seemed to me like a bad idea, but it was very visual how he did it. And he said, you know, the people that live in the apartment wanted to be able, the apartment area wanted to be able to. He felt they could interact with that smart home more efficiently by looking at a graphic than having a thing that says turn house light on, turn up thermostat, you know. And I think that's true. But he had a specific bug, and I think that if he was to use Gorilla 3D, that would be another very good use case of how he could do things, because Gorilla 3D, they can interact with the things on the screen, right? I mean, you can, if you had a light switch in the game, you could click on the light switch. Is that right? That's
yes. It's basically it's still FireMonkey 3D under the hood,
right.
but a lot of
to the max, though, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's on steroids.
Basically, it's still many of the classes of FireMonkey 3D to be as compatible as possible. So you can still use your FireMonkey components. So, for example, an edit, a button, a color picker, or an animation indicator, and place it inside of your 3D scene. So you can potentially build your complete application environment inside the 3D space as 3D space.
So they can actually have controls inside the 3D space.
Yes.
That I didn't know that.
It also works.
Obviously, wasn't paying attention at that point.
Yeah, it also works with the browser, so you can have 3D browsers.
Wow, that's insane. That's really good. I mean, you know, internally in the company, all the technical people, you know, like the project managers and that, they love your stuff. I mean, you know, we all like, wow, it's really good, and we've had, you know, some quite in-depth conversations about it, as you're aware, and or at least I hope you're aware. Meltdown Shark Haven says, actually started, in fact, I am in fact a gamer, and first started learning how to make basic 2D games with Game Maker Studio. Well done, yeah, good. Daniel Fernandez Gonzalez Pena says, Eric, thank you so much for your presentation. The topic is brilliant. It's worth digesting slowly, accompanied by a good cup of coffee. Well, there you go. I would say whatever you choose is great. And he also says, you make it look so easy, but you're sure to pave the way for those who want to get into this area of gaming. Well, I think here what I really like is your visual designer that is in the, you know, Gorilla 3D. I think it uses the idea a bit like live bindings, but also a bit like OpenWire, which is Boyan's methodology as well, which is the idea of having these components and then drawing a connection between them. I think that's a great way. I mean, Sketch was a bit like that from Google, where you could literally plug in components. But I think as a way of designing, what I think is important about that is you're actually opening up really for people who are not quite as technical, you know, because I think people who are maybe not computer science leaning, you know, are more likely to be able to understand how to use Gorilla 3D because they can see the blocks and draw the blocks together. They have to understand, you know, what a shader does or something like that, but at least then they can still drop that on, not need to understand, you know, what all the properties are and anything, as long as they can connect them together. So I think that's an important thing that you have in there, and that's kind of, it's a major part of Gorilla 3D, isn't it? I mean,
yes, of course. It was the intention to do things, to encapsulate things, and to make it easier, because diving into the 3D topic is just horrible. It's so huge, and you wouldn't even know how to start. So encapsulating things and making things easier is difficult, but I think also it's the good way for people to get started. Yes, but for example, the input controller I mentioned. So worrying about oh God, how I mentioned keyboard, mouse, and gamepad. I don't even know how to contact those things. And so you just use this input controller component, and you can define hotkeys. And you say from which device that comes, and you can even combine things to, for example, sequences. So you can maybe in games like FIFA, with the football game, you have keyboard gamepad combinations to do certain tricks and something like that. So you can just simply place hotkeys and say, this is a sequence, and when the sequence is triggered, you do certain things by an action, and then you program the thing you really want. So
sorry, my dog started barking in the background. Hopefully the noise cancelling cancel him out, but you know how it is. I don't know what his problem is. Yeah, I mean, I don't think people realise sometimes the effort that goes into games design. A stepson from a previous marriage of mine, he actually worked for Microsoft Rare Games, and in fact, he's BAFTA award winning twice. He used to design the game engines and the game's physics, so I used to get some, you know, insight in what goes on, and he was a maths genius. You know, I mean, he's still alive. I'm speaking like he's dead. You know, he was a maths genius, still is. but all of those people, you know, the effort that goes into game design and game physics and game engines is phenomenal. You know, you think you're a good coder, and then you see someone who's, you know, like yourself, working on these things and making this stuff look easy to do. You know, the effort that you put into making it simple to use is not simple, and I really respect you for it, because Gorilla 3D makes the difficult a lot easier. You know, I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thanks very much, Eric. I think this is the first time we've been on a webinar together, isn't it? I don't recall you.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good job. And
Thanks.
you know, your use of AI, you made it clear that it's kind of a step into getting to the point where you can then use something rather than create a new game for me. It was good for prompting and giving you some you know, artistic prompts about what you could do with the game, but also helped you generate some of the content and models. But I like the fact that you said, you know, the arm might be stuck to a leg or something like that as well. This is it's an interesting perspective. You know, don't trust it to do it perfectly. Yeah.
Even the dialogue generation was funny too. So as I said, it was very surprising how well it worked. But I've tested it a few times, so I can really say it works. But it shows AI has a little bit of dark humor.
Yeah.
Because the more often I did the generation, AI was generating texts, and the dialogue ended up mostly in destruction of humanity.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. And you're like, who taught
funny.
you this? Who hurt you? You know, it's like, well, what happened in your childhood? Wait, you're an AI. You didn't have one. Yeah, and I think also what's exciting as well is that we're only a couple of years into having usable AI.
Yes.
And wow, you know, what we can already do is mind blowing. And I think, you know, given another couple of years, it's going to be fascinating. We'll get whole movies generated by AI, and we'll sit there and love them because it will create exactly what we want to see. And sometimes it'll be horrible because what we actually want to see is not what we really should be seeing. It's, you know what I mean? Like a good movie or a good game is actually, sometimes it should be, oh, it took me in a different direction to what I was expecting, and that was a good thing. You know, but we shall see. You know, more creative AI is on the way, I'm sure. It's great stuff. Well, thanks a lot, Eric, and I will see you again another time. It won't be the last time we'll have you on, I guarantee it. But until then, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. That was Eric Berger from Gorilla 3D, and a very good guy. I've seen his stuff a few times now, and it really is, you know, wonderful things, really. And AT says, I'm impressed at how to voce tone. So how the voice tone change. I was thinking it was Italian from up there. Change when changing dialogue languages. Yes, AI voice generation is quite impressive, really. So, you know, like I say, I think this is we're only a few years into having usable AI for once. And I think we're only really on the scratching the surface of what's going to happen. So, good stuff. So coming up next is a session with Valerie Kim, and it is AI Revolution, how to not generate vulnerabilities. That's the thing. If you generate a whole bunch of code and you created, 10 times more code than you ever used to be able to write before, you've either got to be 10 times as good at catching all the things it did wrong, or come up with some kind of automation. So Valerie Kim from Scanner now is going to give us an insight into how we can actually automate that process using AI and hopefully catch all the nasties that you didn't know were there. I'll see you shortly. This video is pre-recorded, and then I think Valerie will be joining me live in the studio soon. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the country, in the world, whether you're watching this live or on a replay. Today, actually, this particular segment is a recording. So if you ask some questions, I'm not going to be able to answer straight away. I'm actually going to be in the studio, but someone else is going to do the presentation, not me, but I will be here. Today, we are discussing the concept of AI really introducing more vulnerabilities. This is the biggest problem. As you know, AI is absolutely everywhere. We've got a whole conference about it in June, and it's great. It can be a real boon. It can really help you get up to speed with software development. It can solve lots of problems for you and really help, act like a junior developer. I don't think you can say it's a senior developer yet, but it definitely can, increase your productivity. Only problem is that, sometimes it hallucinates and sometimes it completely goes mad and does weird stuff. The problem with AI is it's very, very good at writing very plausible code that actually has got vulnerabilities in it and things like that. And this is a difficulty that if you've got a junior programmer, sometimes they write awful code and you can see straight away, oh, they're inexperienced, it's awful code. But AI is very good at writing quite good code that has got some big problems with it. And sometimes it's completely useless, but it looks like it works. And actually, it'll even compile and work. So one of the big things that you're going to have to cater for with AI is also making sure that the quality of the code and the security of the code is up to scratch. And my guest today is an expert in that. Joining me today in the studio will be Valerie Kim, and she is a security expert from Secure, and you're a security expert at Scanner, is that right?
Yeah, right as rain. Hi, Ian. It's so good to be back, and thanks so much for having me again.
Yeah, it's not your first time. You're back again. We worked out well last time, so it worked good this time. So today you've got some slides, and then you're going to talk about the slides. I'm going to disappear for that bit because nobody needs to see me whilst you're talking through the slides. And then at the end of the slides, I think you're going to do a live demonstration as well. Is that right? You're going to actually show what the product is. Okay, so what I'll do, if you'd like to share your slides, I'll make it magically appear in here, and I will make myself disappear whilst we're doing that.
Yeah, cool, that works. So the focus of today's recording would be the AI adoption and how it changed our development landscape from all the perspectives. And to jump straight into it, we now live in a world that feels a bit bizarre. So if a couple of years ago we'd be looking at AI, with a bit of peculiarity and be looking at it every couple months and thinking about how, oh, look, this stupid language model is still lacking and cannot complete a simple request, or look, this still cannot distinguish a kitten and a balloon, now that time's long past, and now we live in a world where AI has become an indispensable part of our everyday life and our work life as well. So Copilot, Code Whisperer, ChatGPT, and DeepSeek are no longer just toys, but already productive tools. Statistics show that in the environments where developers have access to those tools, they perform up to 50%. That's one half of all tasks included into the development lifecycle. And for those who think that the developers in their company surely do not have access to be using Gen AI in their work, for those, I'd suggest to reconsider how sure they are about this stance. So, AI is definitely amazing when we live in a world where fast-paced has become the new normal and the new expected, but there are also some drawbacks and some hidden dangers to be on lookout for. From the security standpoint, they could be like vaguely generalized into two categories. The first one would be the code that AI generates, and the second one would be the third-party components that it suggests to developers for usage. And if we talk about AI-generated code, then we have to understand that even though big language models are extremely smart and they do understand what it is that you want to get out from it, they still operate on some level of simplicity. So if you're a developer with some vast experience in the field, you'll also be naturally on the lookout for security. And if you look to recreate the same function or an algorithm with the help of Gen AI, it could produce you a fully feasible code, but at the same time, that code could be open to like multiple vulnerabilities. So it's functional, but it's vulnerable. The trade-off seems to be like slightly off. Then, if we think about big language models in essence and what they need to be performing well is just a lot of raw data. And there is no way to gather that data from purely private resources. So what we inevitably end up doing is looking for that data in public repositories. And if you've ever been and looked for what people put out on the internet, you'd know that the public repositories are not always safe and more often than not safe. And last but not least, in sometimes language models still do not really understand what it is exactly that we need, and then they resort to just mindless pushing of prompts, and they just replicate stuff without thinking, generating a whole lot of vulnerabilities. And if we shift our focus to AI-suggested imports, then nothing's fruity here as well. So once again, they do offer vulnerabilities primarily by, not vulnerabilities, but dependencies, by popularity rather than security. And like, there is nothing you can do about this reasoning. It's solid, but it's also prone to vulnerabilities. Then we love talking about supply chain security and how lack of said security mechanism allows attackers to exploit a bunch of zero-day threats. And using AI, especially with how it likes to hallucinate when it does not want to show that it did not really understand what it is that you need, it opens up a whole avenue of possible spoofing, capture via typo-squatting, outdated libraries, etc. And lastly, these proposals will, unless you specifically ask for that, will not account for any IP regulations, which means that if you just copy those mindlessly, you might find yourself facing a lawsuit in some distant future. So, to prove my point further, I've gathered a few examples of how AI in this case ChatGPT, not necessarily failed, but introduced a whole lot of vulnerabilities into the snippets of code that it produced. The first one was a developer who was making an application for a beauty parlor with the need to first put on the appointment data into the database and then extract it back to make that appointment. So in this case, the code is valid. And at the same time, the code is prone to one of my personal favorites among the vulnerabilities. So here's a case of SQL injection. The code uses simple concatenation of unvalidated user input to build the SQL text query for the database. And to top it off, like a cherry on top, there's also an issue with SQL isolation, as there is no control over the transaction isolation level. So this, of course, leaves the application exposed to unpredictable behavior should there be any malicious input, and could lead to a tool failure. So not a big fan, definitely do not recommend that. And second case, we asked the chat to assume the role of a Delphi developer who is developing an online store using TMS web core, and this code should just allow the customer to just browse through the products in the inventory. And this code, once again, is fully functional and is also susceptible to reflected cross-site scripting. And last but not least, since third time's a charm, we assume the role of somebody who's developing an airline ticket purchase service. This one should have been using the MS Web Core, and with this code, it should have been possible to log in the application. This code is also not without fault and would be susceptible to open redirect. So since this is something that we typically use in a scenario of single sign-ons, there's usually a whitelist to preserve the URLs that will be accepted and distinguish them from those that are unexpected and could possibly be malicious. There is nothing as such here, which makes the code susceptible to vulnerabilities. Once again, this doesn't mean that this will always be the case and that you cannot be using GenAI for your development purposes, but it's just to prove the point that this possibility is always around the table, and especially with how convenient it is to just copy and paste it mindlessly, there is a high chance that you could be bringing something more than just functional code along the way. So, since I've been here talking about how GenAI is more bad than good, what do we do, especially taking into account how fast those changes could be implemented by AI? It doesn't require even the 10th of the time that a developer would spend on writing that code. It doesn't need to have bathroom breaks, smoke breaks, nothing like that. So the answer, even though it existed prior to GenAI adoption, would be as simple and as effective, and it would be to have automated tools in place to protect your code base and not have them as this like miraculous thing that you're doing from time to time, like once a month or when there is a full moon, but do it on the regular basis. Something like static analysis and SCA, SCS for your third-party components. And we don't talk about the state of software composition analysis for Delphi. Everyone's doing their best. However, one thing that is also noticeable is that AI adoption is something that we see in every sphere of our lives. So the security provisioners, your classic static application security vendors, let's say, are also looking to be implementing AI features to hold a candle to the changes that AI brings. And it's only natural that if there are AI models that are looking to be generating some code, generating suggestions, there will be AI security assistants who can quickly come and cover the mess that the previous model left after itself. So we might be seeing more development, and I do believe that we will be seeing more development in that sphere in the immediate future, where we could be unironically looking into a situation where there is like an AI division of labor, where one Gen AI generates the code that you should have been writing, and the other one is fixing, patching the code that you submitted into your development repo. So what it leaves us people with, more time for coffee breaks if we're staying positive. And we should be staying positive, I think. So to prove the point of how security assistants also do their job, I had this one example of code vulnerable to open redirect. So here's another similar example. And this AI answer I actually pulled from what their scanner's remediation AI does. And with open redirect, it's like the easiest way out is just to have a whitelist of domains that will be allowed here. And AI's answer did just that. So this one is not something that you understand as a problem, but still have to like type it out yourself, but something that could be in a similar manner to like your Gen AI generated response, just copy paste it to whatever you place your snippets of code. Then I also have this one showcasing how it could look in the UI, but I do believe I'll show it myself. So with regard to the security features provided by security provisioners that are based off of Gen AI, they work, and I'll showcase you more even more later. But there are also some things to consider. And once again, we drive ourselves into that same wall, which is where do all of those Gen AI get their data from? So with cloud vendors, there's really no way to tell if they're not using your proprietary code to make changes and train their own language models. And since like AI adoption is proceeding rapidly, swiftly, and legislation, as usual, it just falls behind. At the moment, we are in this kind of a gray zone, so there is no way to tell. There are no repercussions, and a cloud vendor could be using it absolutely legally, and this could not be in line with the security policies you have for your code base. Since you have no idea and you have no way to press for that issue to be resolved, what we at Druscan believe in is that all of those features should still be available to you with complete control over data residency and IP residency, and suggest taking a look at the vendors who do provide those features with no, let's say, obligation to move to cloud and be, kind of like guinea pigs for the LLMs that the vendor themselves might be training. And I believe that would be pretty much it for the slides. And come back.
Okay, well, I'll turn that bit off now. It's a good topic. I mean, the reason I was saying, oh, good, let's talk about this and do a webinar, because it is one of these things where I think the people that have really grasped AI are being careful. They realize that AI hallucinates, which is the term that people are using for when it gets things wrong. But the trouble is that I had one person the other day, he was telling me he was asking about Delphi AI, and he had a bunch of .NET guys, and he said they're writing hundreds of thousands of lines of code using AI. And I won't say his name because he's a customer, but I thought, how do you test that? And I said to him, that's, I was trying to be nice and say, I'd be interested to know what quality assurance you use to test that. He said, we use the normal things we use to test the code. He's just telling me one thing that doesn't add up with what he's saying. He's trying to tell me that the developers that were using only AI were suddenly 10 times or 100 times more productive. So they're generating 100 times more code, or which I think is fanciful. But even if it's 10 times more code, he's saying we're using our standard methodology to test the security and validity of that code. I am skeptical.
Something feels off.
It doesn't add up, because if you're suddenly doing 10 times the volume or 100 times the volume of code, unless you've got 100 times the unit test, 100 times the scans from the scanner or something like that, something's got to give. And that, as I said before at the start of this presentation, the trouble is that AI is very, very good at producing a lot of very plausible code that looks good, and you're like, wow, it's really amazing. But if it's doing 10 to 100 times the volume that you normally do, and you're got to review that code yourself, you're going to have 10 to 100 times the volume of reviews of the code. Eventually, there's got to be automated. And I think that's where people like Secure and your Scanner comes in to bridge that gap, because it's all very well increasing the productivity of the devs, but you've also then got to increase the productivity of the QA and the security scanning. And that's exactly what you're talking about, isn't it? So, so I think now you've got a demo that you want to show us, because you've actually got a product that's got some AI built into it, which is interesting. And you're going to show us kind of some of the things that you are working on and that you've got working to help with that problem of so much code. Now you need some help to look for the vulnerabilities. Is that right?
Absolutely. But also, if I just may add to that argument, since we've actually just had this conversation right today with the people in the team, that even if you're not looking into accelerating your development pace, once people like big enterprise customers are really building the security features into their pipeline as an indispensable part of the pipeline, they're already like, but we have so many repos and we want to run like 100 builds a day. And we just don't know how to accelerate the analysis that's already been performed in an otherwise like a pretty classic scenario. And you're telling me that your volume of code, like sheer volume of code, it increases tenfold, and your infrastructure and your security infrastructure is still like, yeah, sure, we can do that, we can handle that. I think twice where the shortcuts were taken.
I mean, we're not negative, we're not saying AI is a bad thing. What we're saying is that you've got to catch up with what's going on in AI. That if it's going to accelerate and enhance the development process and the build process and the staging process and all the other things that go on, then you're also going to have to enhance how you automate your security scanning and your quality scanning and reviews and things like that. And that's why we're talking about this today. So okay. So do you want to go ahead and share your screen, and I'll make it appear on the stream, and then I'll probably hand over to you again, I think.
I believe I'm sharing.
Yep, we are. What I'll do, I'm going to maximize that and get rid of. I think that's as big as we can do it. So that's fine. That's okay. I'll turn myself off for now.
So, and I'll be presenting to you with pride what Scanner's team's been working on in the scope of AI adoption. So for like this MVP kind of product, we have decided to focus on two main avenues. So the first one, if we look into that highly accelerated development pipeline, the first thing that comes into attention is just the sheer amount of verification that you have to be doing on that increased code volume. So since for Delphi, our offering is primarily static analysis, there is that old nagging issue that we're still battling with and with no resolve, which is that while static analysis is amazing because it has the maximum code coverage, the great depth of analysis unmatched by other types of analysis. And it also doesn't require you to have like an already built application so you can run it as many times as you want. It inevitably produces some rate of false positives, which is less than ideal. But also if you're looking to min-max on that ratio, you are inevitably reaching that dilemma of undercommitting vulnerabilities. And this is not something that the scanning team wants to do, but also just going through the same false positives across the projects over and over could be not something that you want to be spending your days and weeks on. So the first avenue would actually be adding that AI assistance to result verification or triage. And this feature, alongside the second one, which is the AI remediation, can be launched directly during the analysis initiation. So here we can put our Delphi code. Let me do it. And then, so all other features stay exactly the same, but we now have that AI corner with their triage that you can be launching directly during the start of the analysis, and their code fix, which will be the ready-to-go AI remediation. So you can just upload it to the system, save it as settings, and be all good with only like the actionable insights once all of these AI features they go through your code and make sure that what you're left with is something that truly matters and doesn't distract you with unnecessary noise and just detections that don't really pose an immediate or like any threat to the state of security in the application. So you could be doing with this, you could be going with this. In DoorScanner, only critical and medium level vulnerabilities affect the overall security posture of the application. So low and info level vulnerabilities will be more like flagging some things with the code quality, or something that is still a bad coding practice, but with no immediate repercussion. But you could be going with all of those. And then after the triage is complete, we move into the second part where in your classic tooling, you have the remediation advice just explaining to you why exactly this fragment of code has been flagged as vulnerable, but fixing that code stays up on you. And like if your code was AI generated, why not let another AI fix that code? So then you have that list of vulnerabilities left after the triage, and you could go and generate AI fixes for the vulnerabilities that were left after those results were cleaned up and all pretty and nice. So all of this is just here for the overall quality of life and for us to be able to match that speed that AI adoption brought to the speed of development process. Then we could go trigger a scan, call it a day, have our coffee. In the meantime, let's go into the project to see how it's gonna look once the analysis is completed. So also we do believe that not everyone will be happy with these changes. There are still a lot of people who believe in the greatness of what a human brain has to offer. So these AI features are completely up to you to use. They could be applied in bulk. They also could be applied just for targeted results. So we could be looking at just a scan project with like no AI embellishment, go one by one. If we take a look at this vulnerability.
So
Yes.
just to recap what you're saying. So basically what we're saying is it's optional, and you can decide whether you turn it on or off, and you can also decide the level of the scan that occurs as well. So you can go for, you know, critical vulnerabilities and you know, the depth at which the AI takes part. I thought it was funny when you said you mashed the two AIs against each other. I thought that was hilarious. I saw a video the other day of two AI robots who were doing Muay Thai kickboxing against each other, and they were fighting. I thought, oh no, now we're really going crazy. But in a way, you know, this is the thing about security, is that it is a fight. You know, you're fighting against people who quite often they're just, you know, being annoying and trying to break the system, or they're doing something dumb that breaks it. But more importantly, you're fighting against increasingly sophisticated hackers who themselves are using AI as well. And that's going to be the next battlefront, really, I think, for antivirus vendors and security professionals, is that AI is going to get better at, you know, fighting against us, the people, the goody, you know, the people on the good side of things. So very interesting. Yeah. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you. Carry on.
No. These are like it's all about mindset. I tell this myself every day, but yeah, you're absolutely correct. So these tools that we are very happy to have at our disposal, we are not the only people who have access to such tools, and I think this is something that as just with AI suggestions, like you see AI generate flawless code 10 times, and when on the 11th there is like a sneaky little vulnerability, you don't pay attention, and then it slips through. And the same goes for us overlooking that there are hackers who also have access to these tools, who could be like intentionally spoiling the data in public repos, especially with third-party components. And this is just something that we do have to adapt to somehow, unless we want to lose, and we don't want to lose. So, if we're circling back, Durskin still believes that these features should not and should never be compulsory to use. But if you want, this could be a great improvement to the overall like speed of processes, of security processes in the company. We're also very committed to bridging that gap between development and security, translating it from one language to another so that it doesn't look like the security team is just somewhere on your developers' backs, nagging them about something that isn't really exploitable and just a waste of their time. So that is why, if we navigate to a like particular vulnerability, here I've already triaged this. So let's look at another one. So if you want to go through the vulnerabilities one by one, if you didn't do this in bulk, which also works, we have this new button, easy to spot, and let's wait for it to see what's its judgment. So this vulnerability is just your classic static analysis. We didn't do anything to it. And after having it a moment of consideration, their triage will essentially pass on the judgment. It builds in on what we already had at Durscanner with the smart filter conf AI, which looked deeper into the vulnerability that was just triggered by some pattern, recognizing the construction in code as vulnerable, but it now looks deeper into the surrounding context to pass on the judgment of whether this was something like,
wow,
your first kid false positive.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, that is just like having some kind of expert sitting there going, okay, well, I've checked it because you weren't sure, and I can tell you it's definitely a vulnerability. I really like that. That's pretty awesome. AI is really, you know, it's taking leaps and bounds forward, really. I don't know
It
whether
is.
I'm terrified or very pleased.
And it's only gonna be even faster and better. So yeah, if we're not using it, we're like just genuinely missing out. So the thing about dirt triage is that it doesn't automatically go with this or that. Is that it provides reasoning for believing. Like think of it as that advanced reasoning model, and that's what dirt triage will do to the results of your just raw, unfiltered static analysis results. For you to have not only the judgment but also the reasoning behind the judgment why this or that is a vulnerability or a false positive. So
So it's basically it's explaining itself, and I think that's quite important with AI. Is it's all very well for AI to make more productive, but you want to know after it's done it, what did it do? You know, why does it think this is a bad idea? Why does it say it's a confirmed vulnerability? The explanation is quite critical, I think, really.
it is. It kind of reminds me of that dino meme with the urge to know why, and I do believe that without that why, most of the judgment is just could be easily perceived as baseless and meaningless. Like, and where do you get that from? So that's why it's really important, especially with this new technologies and AI, despite the like vast adoption, is still relatively new. So we have to build the trust and like both continue the trust in the product and in the new features that it offers. And so now we have this vulnerability taken a look at by their triage. And now, once we've established that in this context, this is a true vulnerability, we could also be going from this, like the classic recommendation that still leaves you just implementing those changes yourself, to the fix with their code fix that will actually bring you the feasible changes. So let me take a look. In this case, like this one won't do much, like no magic show, but it still works. So with their code fix, in the similar manner, we will provide you what exactly it is that their code fix did, instead of just showing you the fixed fragment of code. And in the bottom, you can always shift in between the fixed fragment and the original fragment, so that you can double check, make sure that everything's all right. There are no, like extra symbols anywhere added or removed. Perhaps. So there was this one that was also confirmed by their triage, and we could do that. Give it a bit of time. It's still not exactly there in terms of speed, but
Very good. Yeah, I can see what it's doing. It's basically saying, "Hey, I would not have spotted this. I have to say, I wouldn't have spotted that was a vulnerability, but it's not wrong."
it would be a tragedy if it was. So
Yeah, well, yeah,
yeah. Once again, their code fix will tell you what it is that it did, and provide you with the changed abstract of code. You can switch the view, see here's what exactly was wrong with it, then just copy paste it, bring it to your IDE, rescan, make sure you did an amazing job. So that's basically the idea of it. You can go one by one, and you can go in bulk. And since I've also briefly mentioned how the IP governance is something that we not yet have the legal protection against, but we might be already feeling the consequences of, all of these features will be available on-prem in air-gapped environment. to make sure that you're not just taking their scanner's word that it doesn't do anything with the code to train its own AI, but also to make sure that you can like actionably prove it yourself.
Yeah. So you're protecting their intellectual property is what you're saying, and that's one of the commitments that you give. I think that's good because that's basically, Embarcadero's default position is we know that when someone sits down to code with Rad Studio, that we are there sitting at the desk with them in spirit. Not actually sitting there, that would be weird. But I take it very seriously in the company that's how we should view what we're doing when we're doing things with people's code, when the IDE does things. And I think tools like yours as well, that you take into account, this is their livelihood, this is their secret sauce, their special blend of herbs and spices to make the fried chicken or whatever it is. That's what it is. And so if you go and are careless with their secret blend of herbs and spices, then all of a sudden their competitors got it. So I think it's a basic commitment that people should have, and I'm glad that's the way that DirSecure and DirScanner view things. So it's great.
So we're on the same line with Rad Studio with Embarcadero on this. We believe that especially as security provisioners, we should provide full transparency in the matters that regard the IP governance and just the overall transparency in all of the processes that we bring as services to the end customer. So hopefully it does help and helps us bridge that gap between what AI is crafting every day and what we can catch before it's too late and gets into production.
That's excellent. Yeah. Good stuff. Have you got more to show, or have we got to a kind of stopping point? I don't want to turn off your sharing until you're ready.
Spare me. That's a lot of work that went into training this model and bringing it to the UI. So I have nothing more to show you, and hope that
excellent. Okay, I thought we were at that point. That's good. I'm just going to turn off the screen share so that we are big enough that people can see. It's no secret, I'm a big fan of DirScanner. I'm a big fan of DirSecure. I like the fact that we've actually got some shared aims, really. You don't create IDEs, we don't create security software, so it's perfect. We're not at each other's throats. And I think I know plenty of people have been put your way. Sometimes they come back and go, "Oh, it wasn't for us because the scan produced a lot of false positives." But that's not always the case. But some people said that, and I'm like, would you rather that it didn't find things by accident? That it missed things, and that's the trouble. Is that if you have antivirus, for example, sometimes antivirus is going to look at a file and go, "That looks suspicious," even though it's completely innocent. That looks suspicious. In fact, it happens to Rad Studio. But what's more important, that DirScanner, I've had enough people come back to me and say, actually, and one of these was one of our MVPs came back and said, actually, I found a load of stuff and I was surprised. And the guy, I don't want to call him out because might make him feel a bit embarrassed that I'm talking about the fact that you found some problems with his code, but he's a difficult guy to please. He's he knows who he is, and I'm going to see him in next week actually in Amsterdam. But
we actually say at DirScanner that a difficult customer is the best customer because they know what they want and they can communicate that clearly. So it's
exactly. Yeah, he was very complimentary. He said, what you found, there were a couple of things where he's like, no, that's not really a problem. That's going to happen. But what you did find that was a real problem, he had never spotted it. And I know this guy to be one of the best developers out there. He's a very smart guy. I've got a lot of respect for him. And if he's convinced, then I'm convinced, because he is very difficult to please. Notoriously, he's very well known for it. So you know, it's great stuff. And you know, Andy, who we were talking earlier on, not off camera, but you know, I like the fact that you guys are you know, you support Delphi very heavily, and I think you provide a useful service. And I'm really pleased to see that you're incorporating AI into it as well, because I think you've got to, really, you know,
Yeah,
because
you really have no choice at this
yeah,
point.
because with the rise of AI in the last 2 years, AI has become the thing. You know, it's the thing that is going on, and nobody can ignore it anymore. It is a force of nature. It's as important as the invention of the internet, as important as the invention of the smartphone, and I think it's probably got the potential to be even more important than that. And it's great to see you incorporating it in your scans as well, which are going to help a lot of people out in the future, I think, as well. And you know, really combat against that. Increase in productivity means an increase in potential mistakes,
Yeah.
and a technical debt of checking the errors and security things. So great stuff. Okay, well, I think that's it then, Valerie. So thanks very much. I'm going to thank you, and I shall turn your feed off. Okay, and I'll just turn her off, the screen off there. I want to thank everybody for watching today, and let me just make my screen go to the right size. There you go. And I'll turn off the captions so that we aren't confused about who I am. I'm not Valerie Kim, but I want to thank Valerie for coming in. And as I said, this was pre-recorded, this particular section, but you'll get a chance to see it again, and we'll be doing some Q&A later as well, live questions and answers. I'm not sure if Scanner will be there, but I definitely will be, because we're recording this a couple of weeks in advance of when we're going to show it. But if you scan that QR code there, it'll take you directly to Scanner's website. If not, if you're not really technologically advanced, then you can go onto here and go to dersecure.com, which is I spelt the caption wrong there, but that's my mistake. But you can go there and learn all about it. They're very very well educated about Delphi Code and Rad Studio. I deal with them all the time, so have some fun with them and see where we go from there. That's actually their controlling group company, I suppose, is Secure. But great stuff. Okay, anyway, that's it for now, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks very much. And in fact, you'll actually see me again now, because now is next time. So as I said, we did actually record this a couple of weeks ago. It was just before the Delphi Summit. And we kind of went over a few things. My dog was not in the background like he is now. He's been outside, and now he's, I don't know what he's doing. But Valerie and I were talking about frogs whilst you were watching that video, as you do. And she's joining me live now. Let me just make it happen. Hello, Valerie. How are you?
Hi, Ian.
Yeah.
It's great to be back, and a great chat about frogs.
Let's not tell them why. We'll just leave it at that. We talked about frogs. It was an interesting fact, and then we're going to move on. They were like, "What was it they said about frogs?"
Suspense.
Yeah. So I had a couple of people saying some things. One guy said that's the problem with AI. There are many new developers out there who've never programmed before and now storming into the executive offices. I think this is a bit over dramatization, but with programs completely from ChatGPT. Klaus, I'm skeptical that's actually happening, because I tell you, if they storm most offices, they'll probably get clouted as soon as they walk through the door. But as he then said, you know, you can't check everything, and that's the madness. Super contribution becomes mandatory. Well, I think this is the whole point about the scanner, is that what you're trying to do there, and I'm going to put your barcode up again so that people can scan it, is that you're trying to make it so that I'm going to put your thing there as well. If you're going to be more productive, and we said this in the video, you're going to be more productive by generating code with AI, or even if you're not, even if you're just, you know, maybe you're outsourcing it to somewhere like I don't know, some
Where labor is
yeah,
cheaper.
somewhere where labor's cheaper, and we all know how that works. And it doesn't really matter whether it's a human or an AI. At the end of the day, if you did not personally write that code, then you've got to check that code. And if it's a lot of code, let's say you outsource it to a team of 10 people or a AI that does the work of 10 people, now you've got 10 times the output that you've got to review, and you have to review it. Who in their right mind is going to trust the AI or your outsourcing people, to produce good quality code? The answer is you're not. So either you're going to review those many thousands of lines that the very efficient outsourcing team have created, or the AI have created. And here's the solution: is the scanner. And as I said before, I have no problem promoting your services. What you do is great. Andy and I and you, we all have a good working relationship. We all understand each other. Andy is the boss. He's always super enthusiastic. But I think as well, the company understands Delphi. You go the extra mile to try and make sure that your services work with Delphi, and that for us is a big plus. There is a hole in the market. There are some other options out there for code quality analysis and all the rest of it, but you guys specialize in that, and that's it's a big deal for us, and I think that's it. Now, when it comes to, oh, by the way, someone said good live. I think they meant a good LinkedIn live, because we go out to LinkedIn live as well as various other Meta live, Instagram live, which I think is Meta live, about 4 YouTube channels. We're everywhere. But on the AI part of it, that's a relatively new service for you, isn't it? Is that right?
Yes. So actually, like the very first installment of like full-fledged AI is happening around like next couple of weeks, and we already had like something, I wouldn't say necessarily simplistic, but far more limited in what it could offer and achieve, which was our ConfI. And we've had that for like a while, but now with the speed of adoption of AI everywhere, we just thought that it no longer stands up to par with the demand. So that is why we are bringing their triage and their code fix to help just keep up the pace with the overreaching acceleration of everything.
Yeah, I think it's a good name as well for the two things it does. De triage literally explains what it does. The idea is this bit looks weird, and it's like when you go to hospital and you walk in the door, and there's a thing called a triage nurse, and their job is to look at your injuries or whatever you say is wrong with you and work out, should you be seen immediately because it's life threatening, or can you wait a little while? It happens a lot in the United Kingdom, for example, in England, where
yes.
Yeah, it's very common for people to wait hours in the hospital. It doesn't happen so much in the United States because you pay a lot of money and they can afford to have 10 times the staff. But United Kingdom is all completely financed by taxes and things like that, and that means they don't have enough people to do the job. So triage is what it does. And it's the same thing with this. If triage says this section of code here looks like it might be not so great, and I like that idea of saying, we're not saying it's definitely wrong, we're not saying it's definitely insecure, we think it looks like it could be. And I think that's an important shift in focus from what was being said before, which is, hey, we're scanning it and we found a vulnerability, which is what antivirus does. Is I found this, it's definitely a virus. And I think the other thing to maybe recognize as well is that with these automated tests, it's inevitable that you will get false positives. It's inevitable. Oh, Valerie disappeared. Whoops. Okay, she'll be back in a second. And it's inevitable that you're going to get some kind of false positive where something horrible happened. I think Valerie's internet connection's dropped, so she'll be back in a second, I'm sure. But with the false positive, if it's automated testing, if you don't get a false positive, then you've set your standards too low, and that's the difficulty there. That there's a fine line between never getting a false positive and never actually finding something that is wrong. So it's one of those issues. I wonder if Valerie's going to come back. Valerie, it's the same link. So whoops. Let me see if she's going to come back. Valerie. Maybe her internet's gone. It happens. Internet's an approximation in most places, so you know how these things are. Now, at Embarcadero, we are we try to be independent of recommending too many solutions that are not our own. But at we don't want to pick favorites. But at the same time, in a market where there aren't many options, then sometimes it's better for us to actually recommend a very specific option. I hear a bleep. She's back again. Yes, the vagaries of the internet, Valerie. Yeah, you're back and you're on camera again. Good job. Yeah, it happens. Oh, I can't hear you now. Your audio's muted. Oh. This happens to me sometimes as well. Don't worry. Yeah, I can't hear what you're saying. So no, I can see your lips moving, but I can't hear you. So it's okay.
Now
I can hear you. There you go. Hey, don't worry about it. You know what? As I told you, because when you first went on camera a couple of webinars ago, you're like, "Oh, I don't really do this very often. This is the first time," and I'm like, don't worry, this is the best one the best kind of system to come with, because it's very laid back, and I don't expect people to be, you know what I mean? Like, I think you should feel comfortable with being a guest, and expect the unexpected. Internet goes down, microphones don't work, and all sorts of other things happen. Otherwise, I'd be in trouble. So, yeah. So. I mean, I was saying whilst you were gone, I think it's important for people to recognise there will be false positives. Sometimes, the scan is going to scan it and find a load of stuff, and you go, well, that's not a problem. But it's better that it finds things that are not a problem, as long as it also finds things that are a problem. And there's a fine tuning between, finding nothing and finding too much, and tweaking it. So I think that going and saying dir triage is a good idea, and dir fix as well is a very interesting development as well. And I wait to see how that turns out. I think you're brave as a company to try and do that, because people are very picky about their code. So
yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
like most cases, though, we will be guaranteeing that nothing changes about like the structure of the code. So it's only the security features that are implemented, because we've been like, while the people have been writing code, we've been fixing those mistakes in their code for like over a decade. So perhaps we actually know what we're talking about when we're suggesting to do something.
yeah, you haven't worked with enough grumpy programmers to realize that some of them don't care. They'll just, no, I'm sorry, I'm right and you're wrong. It doesn't matter how good your suggestion is. They just don't want to know. Some people are like this, it's like the
Yeah.
stream monkeys.
That's
Jimmy,
professional pride. So
yeah, well, also
them.
attitude problem is the way I would sum it up. But yes, it's the same thing. And Jimmy Arcanum, I think Arcanum, he's doing a clapping emoji, so I think that's a good thing. But also, I think there's another reason why, and that is he's got a frog emoji. So clearly, clearly he took to heart what we were talking about. But that's great. Okay, yeah. Well, sorry your internet dropped. These things happen. Don't worry about it. That's what we did, a pre-recorded video, and I think we covered all the points we could do. I did ask the sales director, and she's not responded, so I'm going to jump the gun a little bit. We're probably going to do another webinar about this in the coming weeks, where we examine, what dir scanner can do. And the reason is that we're hoping to look at a deal where we actually enable some scans as well, and get people more able to have some scans included in certain things like that. But it's not the ink's not dry on contracts yet, so we can't say for certain. Whoops, I have like a Android tablet behind me, just made a really loud ringing noise for some reason. But Boyan Mitov is a very well-known guy. He's been on this week, and he's gone for the 3 frogs. I think we've started something, Valerie.
That's the ultimate frog. The story about the frog will go to the highest bidder. We're currently sitting at 3.
We'll send it to them as a private email and not tell anybody else. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You sign an NDA before you get the story.
That's the good idea. Yes, I like that idea. Yeah. Well, like I say, we're hoping to do a lot more with Scanner. As a company, we're very convinced. We've had a few people who we trust have used the scans. Some of them a little, I told you that some of these people are very picky, and it wasn't quite for me. But actually, it did find stuff, and the things it found were correct. And like I say, I didn't want to call out the guy in particular who it was, but he had some scans on a project, and I know him to be an extremely good software engineer. Like, he understands stuff at very low level. He's very particular, very difficult person to please, and he was very complimentary about it. He said, well, I didn't find that many, but it did find some things. And if it found problems in his code, then it can find problems in anybody's code, because this guy really knows what he's doing. And that was an impressive result, I think, for Der Scanner. Apparently, Boyan Mitov says the frog wars are on. Oh God, what have we done? Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Valerie, once again for joining. And
Thanks for having me.
No worries, and I'll see you next time, where we'll do another webinar and hopefully have some good news about some other stuff happening as well.
Yeah, sounds exciting.
All right, it is.
We're gonna keep our lips sealed for the moment. Yeah.
Fingers crossed and zipped up. Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, so we have got to the end. Amazingly, I don't know how I've managed to do it, but one whole week of various webinars and things like that. Lots and lots of sessions, great sessions from Valerie, and who else have we had? Eric, David Millington, who is no longer working for Embarcadero, but that doesn't mean to say he's still not involved in Delphi, very much so as a MVP. And I'm giving a thumbs up to Valerie. I don't know why, I guess you can see what I'm doing, but she's sending me a private message in the chat. And we've had Miguel, Diego, Dalia. Thank you for all of you that took part. Yilmaz did a couple of sessions. Dion, who really went above and beyond. He not only did he do several sessions himself, which were extremely good sessions, but he also stood in for Diego and helped translate Diego, because Diego is a little bit nervous about his English, and he speaks more English words in one sentence than I can speak Brazilian Portuguese. So it was very good. I'm just trying to make sure. And Juna and a few others as well. Daniel Fernandez. Oh yes, Dinos Dev. You need to follow him. And we've got a few people commenting. She's going, thanks for having me and have a great weekend. Yes, thank you, Valerie. Francis says, thank you so much for a great week of presentations, like the work that goes into every presentation. Thank you all. I must revisit. Yes, everything you've seen this week is recorded, and we will be putting out replays. We'll put them out on our YouTube channel, on our other social media, and on the blog as well. And where big money is involved, my instincts are an abundance of caution, says Francis. Yes, I understand. AI is a very good way to burn through a pile of cash very, very quickly if you're not careful, but it's also a very good way of generating an income much faster than you did before. Scott Curter says, excellent bootcamp, well worth the time. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. And Paul McGee says, Milan Vetranier, Three Frog says it's a compliment. Oh, I get it. It's like a star system. Oh, that would be so good. Frog star system, rating system. It's a compliment. I hope so, because this is an incredible 5 days. Thank you. And Paul McGee says, Ian, you'll get a reputation as a marathon YouTuber. I don't know about that. I think I just sit here and everybody else does the work. Fabian Muller says, very useful Codecamp, a lot to review. And I actually want to, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute, but I'll just pull up a few other things as well. Thank you. It was a really informative set of lectures and discussions. I'm so glad to have set aside all these evenings. Thank you. And thanks to my family too. Yes, I apologise to your family, Andrew. Hello, Andrew's family. I'm sorry we've been taking up his time. It is in the spirit of education. Andrew says, thank you. And he says, I'm now empowered to go forth boldly. Good job too. In the next webinars you're going to see me, I'm going to have a cutout behind me, a spot, because I am a Trekkie. And before I go, thank you to all the people who've given all the compliments and that, but I want to make sure that I do call out in particular the people behind the scenes, because I am the public face of this. I'm sitting on the cameras and you see me and you get to listen to me, unfortunately for you, but I am the public face of actually a very, very big team, and that team includes producer Martha, who she's actually working on some exams at the moment, and she's doing some finals as well, amongst other things, and works very, very hard. And I don't know how she found the time to help me organize this. For every 1 hour you see me on the screen talking nonsense, Martha has probably worked 3 hours wrangling the people behind the scenes, getting the videos ready. I know I do quite a lot of editing and putting things together, but Martha works extremely hard, and this is my job to do this, but it's Martha's job as well. But she's also trying to be educated and better herself with some degrees. So Martha, good job. I hope your exams went well. She may or may not see this, but if you know, we'll pass it on to her. Also, I want to make sure, and I made a note so I didn't forget this time, Hagop. Hagop is the guy, he's one of our writers, and he's our head writer actually. He does a lot of the summaries of the webinars. You'll see the blog posts go out, and that's Hagop doing that. Barbara, she's the person that organizes the emails and makes sure that the text goes out, reminds you of the session. Otherwise I'd have nobody turning up instead of 3,000 people watching the replays and things like that. Alex, who does the graphics, a lot of the graphics. The sales director has said that we will be giving away free scans in a future promotion. She said she hopes she's not too late. She's only just got back to me. Well done, sales director. You were a little bit too late, but just in time. I'm going to say just in time. LOL, bless her. She just messaged me. But yes, we're going to be giving away some scans. Free scans for Scanner soon. So more on that deal lately. And whilst I'm thanking people, as I said, Alex for the graphics, he does a sterling job. All the backgrounds you see, all of those AI graphics and all the rest of it, Alex does all of that. And yes, he does use AI to help him, but a lot of it is down to his effort. And Guy works super hard and all hours to do. April as well, and April does a lot of the social media stuff in the background. Will, who works on the marketing and all the rest of it, he's a good guy. Yes, they are going to include, I'm just getting the message through, in future sales there are going to be 2 static analysis scans and 2 scans to enhance code quality, and that's going to be included in enterprise and architecture new licenses, amongst other things, but I'll get you the details of that. But what you saw today just now with Valerie, that's included in there. Woohoo! And that's going to be on till June the 30th. Well, we'll make sure I do a webinar with Valerie before then. So those are only people, but not only that, all of this, all of the marketing people and all the sales people and the graphic designers and the social media managers and myself, we'd be nothing without the hard work of Marco, David Millington until very recently, and Nuno on the product management team, and Serena and all of the unnamed people who we tried to keep quiet for lots and lots of reasons. You know, the efforts they put in, the only reason I can sit here and talk nonsense they work very, very hard, and sometimes they get some unfair criticism because business decisions get made and budgets get in the way and time constraints affect people, and they get a lot of grief. But do you know what? I'm very, very pleased and proud to work for Embarcadero. I was Delphi developer since the very first version of Delphi. I remember the very first day it was released, and now I get to talk about the product, explain the benefits and pros and cons of Rad Studio, and I get paid to do it. So for all those people saying thank you to me, etc., and all the rest of it, like Yilmaz, for example, by the way, is also extremely active for the Learn C++ community. And Boyan, all of these people come together. It takes a village, as they say in America, but actually it's much more than that. It takes a whole city full of people, and all of you saying thank you, team. Yes, it's a team effort. I just happen to be the talkative public face of a very good bunch of people, and there is not a single person in Embarcadero I don't rate. Al and people like that. You've probably never heard of them. Antonio, and things like that. Some of us are more well known than others, but those people work every single day to make sure that you get a good idea out there, and Delphi is around in the future. And that goes for Idera, who actually make sure that Delphi is still around. So, I just wanted to make sure that I called out the people and made sure that, kudos goes out to the people that matter, not me. It's my job to be talkative. Otherwise, you wouldn't, what would be the point of me doing the job? But to make sure that the team are recognized as well. Anyway, as we always do on now the sales director's mentioning stuff to me right at the very end, but there you go. But as we always do at the end of any week-long coding camp or 2-week-long coding camp, we always have to end on our traditional Code Monkey theme. So those of you that know it are old-time Delphi people. You're going to sing along, I'm sure. But if not, I'm going to see you again in the future. I think I'm doing a JavaScript camp soon in a couple of weeks, a few other things as well, and we'll be going back to doing some more webinars where we'll be creating apps, and we've got some really good apps coming up, some good ideas as well. But until then, thanks for joining me all week. For those that you have, and I know who you are, Richard Maley. Thank you for saying that as well. And we will see you next time.
I decided it would be cool to make a program where the code was the codified lyrics to a song, and then the output was the actual lyrics to the song. So much like Walt Disney created Fantasia based on classical music, I've created a special musical number based on the music of Jonathan Coulton.
Code Monkey, get up, get coffee. Code Monkey, go to job. Code Monkey, have boring meeting with boring manager Rob. Rob say Code Monkey very diligent, but his output stink. His code not functional or elegant. What do Code Monkey think? Code Monkey think maybe manager wanna write login page himself. Code Monkey not say it out loud. Code Monkey not crazy, just proud. Code Monkey likes Fritos. Code Monkey like Tab and Mountain Dew. Code Monkey very simple man with big warm fuzzy secret heart. Code Monkey like you. Code Monkey like you. Code Monkey hang around at front desk till your sweater look nice. Code Monkey offer buy you soda, bring you cup, bring you ice. You say no thank you for the soda, cause soda make you fat. Anyway, you busy with the telephone, no time for chat. Code Monkey have long walk back to cubicle. He sit down, pretend to work. Code Monkey not thinking so straight. Code Monkey not feeling so great. Code Monkey like Fritos. Code Monkey like Tab and Mountain Dew. Code Monkey very simple man, big warm fuzzy secret heart. Code Monkey like you. take bath, take nap. This job fulfilling in creative way, such a load of crap. Code Monkey thinks someday he have everything, even pretty girl like you. Code Monkey just waiting for now. Code Monkey says someday, somehow. Code Monkey like Fritos, Code Monkey like Tab and Mountain Dew. Code Monkey very simple man, big warm fuzzy secret heart. Code Monkey like you. Code Monkey like you. Code Monkey, get up, get coffee.
This is actual Object Pascal code and was recorded in real time. You can compile it with Delphi or app method and run it on Windows, OS X, Android, and iOS. The output is the original lyrics to the song. The code will actually work as a console application as well, and so in theory could work on other platforms like Linux, etc. Just in order to make it shared code, I made it a GUI application. I hope you've enjoyed this special musical number, and my thanks to Jonathan Colton for making and sharing this great song. You can download all my source code for this song on my website at delphi.org/codemonkey. From there you'll find links to download Jonathan Colton's song as well.
Thanks a lot. See you next time. Bye.